We're good to go.
Just sending live now. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Welcome to the meeting of the 8th of March. I've been getting around a few of my engagements for the first time in the year. So I can actually say to you folk, Happy New Year. I mean, having said that, we're into March and it probably feels like we're a bit buried into the year. So
Merry Christmas at our next one.
I'll be saying Merry Christmas in the next one, won't I? That's right. So look, thank you for that. Thank you, staff, for giving us a chance just to have a wee bit of committee time. It was very useful. And I suspect parts of that will influence the way we talk and discuss later on. So do we have any apologies? I've got one from Neil, I think. Is that right, Sarah? Isn't able to be with us. So everybody else can be with us for the rest of the morning-ish, early morning-ish. See how long, I'd see which way we go. Hopefully it's not much longer. Can I put, can I move the motion and we accept Neil's apology? Second, thank you, Tamer. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. No request for public forum. Can we just have a look at the minutes, please, from the last meeting? I'll move from the chair there, except as true and correct. Do I have a second, please? Thank you, Tamer. Is there any matters of correction or accuracy that you need to raise with the question there? I can't know what there was. No, it's all fine. We're there. I'm comfortable with it. I'll move from the chair that we accept these true and correct record. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Coming up, we've got the agenda. I'm going to rattle through it pretty much the way we have it set out. Is there anything in it that might cause you to raise matters of your interest? Might just say a note. I need to give you an updated interest rates though, but this week I have been appointed chair of Christchurch City's Risk Committee. There will be a consequential impact on other engagements, which I'm not at liberty to say what I'm getting off basically, but I'll let you know in due course. But for what it's worth, I don't think that's a big issue. I don't think we're going to be talking about Christchurch International Airport too much, are we, at this point in time? So I don't think it affects the rest of the meeting. Okay, look, with that, hopefully that's cool. I think we can get straight to the report, Saskia. So why don't we have a crack at this impressive list of policies that you're asking us to have a crack at?
Good morning, committee members. We have Alex sick today, so myself and David, with Paula's help, are going to go through this item. So you'll see there across the organisation, fairly good compliance in our policies, and obviously really good transparency here for the committee. So I think what I would do is, rather than go through all of those that you can see in the paper, I'll just point to a couple of interests that actually sit in my area that are out of date, and just let you know where they're at. So you'll see under business support staff interest policy, which does come to this committee. It's top of my whiteboard. It is out of date. It was, I was hoping to try and get it to you at this meeting. We managed to get one of my ones that was out of date up here, but that one, unfortunately, apologies, is lagging. That will definitely be at your next meeting. So fraud, bribery and corruption is the next one out of date that is on the agenda for this meeting. The final one in my area that is out of date is the vehicle procurement, maintenance and disposal policy. So this doesn't come up to the committee. It's a real operational policy around vehicle renewal cycles. So that sits with Peter. So where that's at is it's on my desk. We have discussed the changes to it. I just need to amend those and get those to Peter. So that will happen very shortly. The key thing that we're thinking of in that one for the committee's awareness is extending the life of our vehicles. So we currently have a really short procurement cycle of 3 years, which is we've been out of touch with market reality. So Peter's given some direction on the length of time we'd like to see it in the mileage as well, to be upped on those to get the best value out of our fleet. So we can definitely update you next time, but that is imminent, because we need that, of course, for all the annual clean budgets that we're doing at the moment. So that's sort of the ones in my area, David and Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Saskia. So in community experience, the collection development policy is out of date. We've had another couple of meetings in the last quarter with QLDC on that, and that policy will likely be a full refresh, essentially. It's been a while, and that started sort of back in the day when we had a joint library manager across the two districts. We now have two separate library managers. So we're just working through the best and most efficient way of doing that. So probably at least 1 or 2 more quarters, I'd suggest, until we have an updated version coming back. And just the second update in the future work is the reserve naming policy. There has been an update on that as well. Apologies, it didn't make the schedule, but we have an open spaces naming policy that council approved a couple of weeks ago, which gives us guidance essentially on how we name our policies, how we name our open spaces across the district, which is cool. The first one in 34 years, I think it is. So yeah, that's probably it for my area.
In community vision, we have 2 policies that are out of date in the community engagement area. So the community development strategy we've intentionally sitting on because we've got the district vision work going on right now, and that will be finished around July this year, and that will feed into that community development strategy. So it seems pointless to push on something until it's well informed with community feedback. And the grants policy, it's ticking away. It normally lines up with a long-term plan, so we hold that into the
Brilliant. Thank you. Before I know questions, Saskia, I'm just going to ask, to be honest, a couple of ignorant questions, to be honest. When I see it say organisational performance, I think there's something like you is 84.76. I think, what does that mean?
So that's the average of all the business units, our average across the organisation.
Average of what though?
Of total policies. So
Okay.
but our obviously 100% would mean every policy in this organisation is up to date, sitting at just under 85%.
And it's terms of reference question, why are we worried in this committee about all those policies?
So it came out of before my time, an Audit New Zealand request. It was noted that there was not good governance oversight. There was a lot of policies out of date in the organisation. So that's where it's come from. But happy if this committee wants to take a fresh look at this and what you'd actually like to see.
Well, I was going to say, I was being a bit rude. I was going to say, is there a learning point here? Why do we do it, guys? Anybody give me a sense of why Audit New Zealand might say that? Probably I've got to support them. I shouldn't knock them, but I'm just wanting to ask why.
If we have a whole lot
What do
of
we spend? I mean, to be honest, I mean, I'm not actually worried about the time I had to spend on preparation last night. But I argue there was a lot of them, wasn't there? Why are we doing it here? Okay, the critical thing here, isn't it, is that we need to get a sense of assurance. So my concern is that we think strongly of ourselves as a risk and an assurance committee, and actually policies are, if you go to risk terminology, often seen as one of your first, probably actually your second lines of defence against risks occurring. So it becomes really important. So it's meritorious, the level of accountability here from all of you. Thank you for that, as to where we're at. What interests me is, it's Orwellian, isn't it, if I remember George Orwell correctly, all policies are equal, but some are more equal than others. And I wonder, Saskia, if there are policies here that fall within not completed that are more important for us in Central Otago as to where we are right at the moment. And I wonder if that's, I mean, I don't have any, well, I am interested actually in the library and actually collaboration with QLDC. I'm interested to know how that's working for a whole bunch of reasons about how we work. But is that sorry, Dave, I'll pick on you, so you mentioned it, but is that mission critical right at the moment? Which of these is mission critical? Because some are past their use by date, and I want to know whether any of those are mission critical. Okay, so I'm probably leaving this as a rhetorical question, although I do have a view that some of them possibly are. So, Paul, I'm not picking on you, but when I saw that community vision one, I thought, how can I prepare a long-term plan if I don't have a community vision? You might tell me there's some reason that it's not relevant directly to what we do in the LTP, but you can see where I'm probably trying to go here, Saskia. What do we need, for instance, to have in place to plan effectively? as in contrast to, say, you mentioned the important operational and there's financial impact, the vehicle policy, but ain't that big on my LTP or indeed the governance of the organisation. It is important if I'm wanting to think, do we just have our policy framework working? You know, have we got in that lines of defence assurance over these sorts of things? But actually, which of these is more important? Because some of these relate to the LTP. Now, Paulie, you and I have a debate, and I said I'm apologetic that I might be a PDP. I don't know whether that is or not important. But if it is, it suddenly says, from my perspective, we suddenly start to say, have we got this on track? Is it going to be ready in time to influence our thinking around the long-term plan? Peter, have you got the resources to do this? You know, these are the sorts of, rather than this just being a dry, boring 84.96% or whatever it is, I want to know why I'm looking at it. So I just, look, can I let that hang in the air? And folk can, unless folk want to, you know, my colleagues want to comment on that at this point. I'm just wanting to reflect that rather than this just being dry old bones, we need to think actually, is there a key message in here other than the generalities that it's helpful to know that we've just got good systems, processes and policies in place? Anybody want to make comment on that? No? Feels like, sorry, I lectured you, didn't I?
No, I think
sorry about
it's a useful lecture, Bruce, because I went through without having the lens that you've now put on it, and that means changes the way I'd look at it when I look at it again. So it's very helpful.
Look, it's
And I sort of does tie in a little bit to what you're covering off, Bruce, but there's one in there, the gambling policy that's 9 months out of date, but is a requirement under the Gambling Act. Is there? I wondered if there was a reason for that, which is not in your.
Yeah, I'm not aware, David, have you had any observations on that one?
No.
I'll open it up.
Your review is underway on it currently.
And I just wondered how much, it says a review underway, but I'm guessing, given it's a requirement under the Gambling Act, I would have thought it would be quite tight and probably is only being tweaked as opposed to being rewritten unless there has been changes to legislation, in which case I would have thought it was a priority that we keep up with those changes.
Yeah.
Does the Act have a time frame in it that says you must do this every 2 years?
We'll follow that one up with Lee.
so that's Sarah. Tracy. Who's Sarah?
Sarah's coming. Sarah's
Sarah's fine.
depending on which way.
My deep apologies. You can call me Keith or something. I'll be fine. I'll be comfortable with that.
I guess for me, the remuneration policy
Yeah.
is the biggest thing there. I mean, we are constantly hearing how slim the team is, how, you know, how much overwork the team is, and that falls on you, Peter. So, but yeah, the remuneration policy for me is something mission critical, I would say, for our organisation.
Now, I was a wee bit surprised to see that one listed as overdue because ELT had been, well, Lou Fleck has been talking to ELT about that, and there was conversations happening with the third tier. So I wonder if, in my head, that's actually been finalised. So we will fly that one up as well. Peter, have you got anything more to add to that one?
Yeah, look, I think it actually is well in hand.
Yeah.
It's probably just a matter now of the final drafting and polishing it on. I do like strategic ambiguity.
A lot can be slipped under strategic ambiguity. Peter. No, that's no worries. Okay, look, that's really helpful, and I think that's a useful discussion. So, yeah, Tim.
Thanks. Just under Three Waters, I just had some questions for my understanding, and Julie, I'm glad you're here. The drinking water quality policy statement. Why do we have a policy statement when the law tells us what?
So the purpose of the drinking water quality statement is for council to demonstrate government's commitment to ensuring that source water is kept safe. And it's a whole of organisation thing. It's not about what the Three Waters team does. It's around issuing resource consents and everything you're considering that does is have impact on the source water quality that impacts not just councils for the supplies, but everyone's for the supplies. So that does need updating, and we'll get that through now that we're not transitioning.
Cool.
And the water safety in November 2022 as well.
And Just-
That we audited by tomorrow, on the first one of those next couple of weeks.
And the other two were just the trade waste bylaw, which is on hold, and the water supply bylaw on hold. Those bills, the law's changed, so are they going to be picked up again now because it's all back on our?
They are, and I haven't actually read the latest legislation that comes out, but the indication from government was that they would have to be, that the legislation is going to say that they've all got to be reviewed and but new ones put in place by a date in 2026. But to be honest, we would probably try to get that through faster because at the moment we're unable to really manage things like trade waste. But we kicked that can down the road with transition and now we're going to have to.
Oh, yeah, it was entirely
Again.
appropriate that we did, under the guidance that we had. Thank you.
There is probably a number of policies that we need to look at in the water space now as well, so we'll go through that.
I did have one other one. Are all of these policies meant to be publicly available? Because I looked for one of them. It might have been the drinking water quality policy statement, because I thought before I asked the question, what actually is it? And I couldn't find it on our website.
Yeah, look, it should be, because it should be a commitment by council around that, so,
It might be my inability to work with it, might be user error, but I did try.
Look, I think probably some of these things when they come through, it's often seen as a bit of a rubber stamp exercise, so because that's a requirement under the Drinking Water Act that we have drinking water quality statements. And it is actually a commitment by council.
But it reflects probably if I can, to reinforce my message, it might be useful. I mean, we're probably going to suddenly find all of these actually get essential, Gambling Act versus, and drinking water quality, as well as also the ones that might be quite LTP related. I wonder if Saskia, I can invite you next time around by ELT, if there are any that you see as mission critical or you're worried about trying to get through, you let us know. So I think it's something that we need to perhaps try and reflect on, whether you run the lens down. We're at risk of being in breach of statute, the Gambling Act one. I don't think we are, but we could well be. I should know my Gambling Act, but I've forgotten it.
You're not willing to take a bet on it.
I think it's an element of policy, still a policy, simply change them. But I mean, certainly there are statutory requirements to review. I guess it's a moot point. I need to be a lawyer and I'm not about whether actually you're in breach if you haven't. What does it mean? So that would be worthwhile thinking through. Whether it's statute, whether it's mission critical to something like our LTP or planning process, or whether it's other, which doesn't mean to say it's not important, but perhaps it says we need to think about where our resources are.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Tracy.
Look, I'm really conscious that when the team puts all of these reports together, and this is more perhaps a process question. These reports obviously have got to be all compiled and then go out. So quite often these reports, and this is not necessarily just Autumn Risk, it's for across council as a whole. Is there a reason why we don't have a date on these reports they were prepared? Because sometimes obviously you guys are still working on things, and at the time that the report is written can be a considerable difference in time. And I'm just wondering if, and that was a general question across all reports.
Yeah, we do have in the signature blocks, the date that, I suppose the key date is, that was written 19th February. It is, they are written a few weeks before you guys do see them to get through to the DMs, then through to Peter and allow governance time. So it can be written like 3 weeks before.
So essentially it is that date that the signature, okay, I'll just work on that then. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There is one follow-up question. Julie, I'm very interested in Tamara ROI. They're doing an on-site review?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, they started reviewing, so they required all drinking water safety plans across the whole country to be submitted by, I think it was about the 15th of November 2022.
Yep.
So they will have got thousands.
Gazillions, yep.
And now they're going through auditing individual plans, but they're scattering them across the country. So we're getting Cromwell.
Oh, okay.
I
Look,
think Cleveland must have recently.
They said yesterday they've got 800 to do and they've done 67.
Miles.
Which is one of the council.
Yeah. Look, I just register the interest. I think on behalf of the committee, we'll be interested to see the results, and I hope that would Saskia be okay to come through. I probably will has an infrastructure committee, obligation, but from an insurance perspective, again, it's useful. It's a bit like senior NZTA or Wakakatahi reviews or whatever else as part of our collective assurance as a committee. That's really helpful. So I just register that. Okay, we've had a pretty good crack, and so firstly, thank you for the transparency management for what you've given us, and a bit of a suggestion from me that there may be a slightly different way to look at it next time around, which would be superior. I'm going to go to the recommendation, which is received. We'll go and move on to second, please. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tamar. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, it's carried. Miles, are you under any stress to get out of here?
What's that?
Are you under any stress to get out of here?
No.
Okay, we've just got a few things to work through before we get to the Treasury report. If that's okay with you, mate. Thank you.
That's fine.
Audit New Zealand and internal audit update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you'll see in the paper actually not much of an update at all. What I can say is we have hot off the press just received the management report on last year's audit. So that's been forwarded to me this morning. Just had a conversation with the chair, and given that we've got 3 months to our next meeting, that we'll look to finalise that. Obviously Peter needs to see it first, and then we'll get that out to the committee well before the next meeting in the next couple of weeks. The internal audit program, that is sitting with me to go back to Deloitte. So I do need to get onto that. It was agreed at a previous committee meeting that we would delay the internal audit program. There were some concerns from management around the priority list that was put into that draft report, and that we needed to go back with Deloitte and make sure it was value for money. I've recently sent, you probably had a chance, Mr. Chairman, to look at it. Recently sent the draft through to the chair. I know that it has been previously circulated to the committee, so I'll get that action before the next committee meeting.
Thank you for attending. No, I haven't read it yet, so thank you for saying, Bruce, get on with it. So I'll do that. Yeah. No, and in fairness to Saskia, he has raised it with me that we look at the value for money, so there'll be a bit of discussion outside the meeting around that. Any questions for Saskia on this process?
Just when was that report actually due? The one from audit.
Well, it all ran really late, and it's actually really unhelpful because any recommendations they have, it's well too late now to start implementing them. We didn't get sign off until December, of course, and it usually does take them a little bit to get it out, but receiving it in March is very late. Very late indeed.
So is it a couple of months?
Not normally, to be fair. Definitely have had them come out well. We don't know, Peter, in your experience, what it's been.
Simultaneous.
Yeah.
In fact, it was presented at the time of the audit.
Because they know what the issues are that they've picked up in the audit. So for it to take this many months,
That's what I wondered. Yeah. Just add it to the list.
I have subsequently met our auditor. Believe it or not, I hadn't realised who our auditor was. I'd like to think that not because I have actually I don't have any insight running these days in New Zealand, in fact they hate me, but I no, that's wrong. I shouldn't say that publicly. I've been challenging for them, unfortunately. I'd like us to work on the relationship with our auditor. The Auditor General will always be our auditor, and while there is some level of choice on his part as to who does the audit, I think it's important that we try and work out the person we do. So, given we have the management report, I've asked Saskia, once management had a quick chance to look at it and provide their comments to the recommendations, that actually it's circulated to the committee rather than wait till the 7th of June, which is our next meeting. As chair, I will certainly look at it, and Saskia may well get a response from me over what I think about it, but we will take it from there. But in light of that, and in light of the inherent critique of timeliness, I would like us to work on that relationship with the auditor, but we can deal with that offline and see how we can, quite frankly, improve that and for it to provide value for us rather than a necessary hurdle we had to jump, but a distraction. Brilliant. Any other questions on this paper? Yes, Tracy.
Yeah, just with the I think I'm stretched out, I guess the broader audit risk assessments and the, I guess the, asset valuations.
Yes.
Is there any risk that insurance is going to be different with those reevaluations that we haven't budgeted for?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a short answer. So one thing to give this committee some assurance there, I'm working really closely with our insurance provider this year, Aon, just with staffing and stuff. We really haven't dived deep into the insurance program. So very fortunate Amelia is going to give us a hand with that and really interrogate our insurance program this year and work really closely with Aon on the renewal because it is an area, as members know, has jumped up significantly in the last 2 renewals. It's nearly doubled in the time I've been in this role.
And it will probably double over the next few years as well. Valuation keep up. I mean, it's one of the 2 key factors in terms of the price you'll pay. Look, thank you for raising that though, Trace. It's a really good point. Again, if I could just reflect properly, it's not like I'm promising all these things. I'd like us to have a direct relationship with Aon as a committee. Is it Sally, I think, is from Dunedin, I think is the rep that.
Yeah, through the manager, and we deal with Elaine, one of the.
Well, I think quite frankly, this is somewhat Tom. I was at an Aon risk seminar yesterday in Hamilton, and well, I know the national manager and their strategy, and I think we should get them online to talk to us about our strategy, because essentially the point is if we just sit, our premiums will go up and we won't probably have done anything wise for our risk profile because things are changing. I mean, it's even interesting hearing today on the radio coming across this national meeting of the Insurance Council with them, the minister saying, well, we'll have to get an NPS that you can't build in a floodplain. And I'm starting to think, oh, I wonder what a floodplain is, and all of a sudden, that may not be a big issue. Well, it will be a big issue for us, but I think we need to look at that. We need to look at some of the challenges that are occurring elsewhere around the country. I know it's regional council, but there is a massive class action on the Edgecombe flood in the Bay of Plenty. So we're going to need things that's protecting a home. Actually, we have been to see what comes out of this. So I would like us to Saskia build into our program as you develop your relationship with Aon, a direct relationship between the committee and Aon, and it needs to be ultimately at the strategy level. Placement is the well, assuming there are people in the market and there is placement possible, that's easy. It's actually the strategy. What is our risk appetite, and what are we prepared to do? So we could include that on. We can talk about that later on as to where that sits in place. That would be absolutely great. Now, where are we at with my agenda? I need to make certain. Oh, yes, we are there. So thank you for that. Really good question, Tracy. Valuation is important both to the annual report depreciation and also to our insurance. Anything else, guys? I sense that we probably don't move these off until the auditor says, is that right? Most of them are there. Brilliant. Nathan, a quick question. I think I saw it from here. Are they talking about security and access, or is that a later stage?
Later stage.
Later stage, yeah, I'll come back to that. Can I just ask one question? I probably had lots of them, but for the sake of the meeting, I'll keep moving. Can I just ask one thing? There's an interesting one there about capitalisation policy. Sorry that this should interest me, but it does, because I also want to develop in terms of our financial results. Why does our cap policy also relate to 3 waters? Do we have a separate policy for capitalisation of 3 water assets? Because that's what this says to me here.
We were going to develop one to be clear about what we were capitalising and what we were not capitalising. And it comes down to short life assets or plans and policies. Do you capitalise those things or don't capitalise them?
Okay.
It's not very clear.
But our core sort of infrastructure stuff. Okay. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Radio. Well, it was a generalised comment here, Julie, rather than a perhaps the 1 or 2 sort of little hairy questions.
Come up because things like resource consents or water safety plans or activity management plans, we have never capitalised.
Yep.
And yet some councils do.
And that's an important question, isn't it, Betty? Because it also comes back to that funding.
Going into this
Yeah.
long-term plan, we have arranged to capitalise these things.
Yeah.
But if you're going to capitalise them, you should be putting them in an asset register as well and
Yeah.
appreciating that
Yeah.
cost of preparing them. So
Rightio. No, well, thank you for that. That's good. That's good to know a wee bit of the reality of it. Okay, so any other questions, folks? So so we've quite a good chat, improve our relationship with the auditor. That's probably my responsibility, not to get offside with them and help them. Pick up with our insurance relationship, recognise that we're going to circulate a management letter around the committee, and auditors are always going to come back and look whether they're happy with their answers before we can move these off. That's really good. Can I move the recommendation then, please, that the reports received? Good move and second, please. Thank you, Tamar. Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
No.
Those against, it's carried. Rightio, sweet with some really good, well, actually, no, this is where we're up to date. Miles, can you please come to the table?
Thank you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good.
So look, before Miles has a correct scare, I would invite you to speak to your paper. Then I think we'll pretty quickly get ourselves into the presentation phase.
Just a very quick word from me. The main focus is Miles to take you through the information, and Miles does have a separate presentation as well on the related on the outlook. So this report that you see before you is a requirement under our liability management policy. So we have been working with Miles in developing regular reporting that's going to come up to the committee every quarter. So once Miles takes us through any changes that you'd like to see or information that the committee would like to know, we can work that through with Miles. So that's really the purpose of today is to hear from Miles and have a really first good look at this quarterly report. So over to you, Miles.
Thank you. I'm just about out of my report. I've got two others for you, but not that one. But I can remember what's in it. I'm going to copy it, that's good. Good start, isn't it? I'll take it that you've read most of the report. The economic commentary is now totally complete. It's not totally out of date, it's out of date. Just that it was done earlier, months, 3 weeks ago, and things have changed quite a bit since then. So I'll in the presentation, I'll update what's happened with economically wise. I don't think there's a need to go through this part of it, unless there's any specific questions on the report, on the commentary. But as far as the report goes, it's the normal dashboard report. The funding maturity profile which goes into the different types of instruments that you've got, and where the maturity sits, the bond, the floating rate note, commercial paper. There is a bit on policy compliance there. You're slightly outside of policy on the fixed rate hedging bands. Now, I can address that, and there is a reason for that, in that quite some time now we've been trying to get what's called an interest rate swap dealing line with BNZ, and it was going ahead, and then they came out and said, actually, I'm sorry, we've sent in the wrong documentation and we have to start again. So that was before Christmas. Yeah. So I've had to start with a new one. It's not in place now, so we haven't been able to rectify the policy breach because of that. That's the bad news. The good news is that interest rates have actually fallen in the last few weeks, and quite sharply, and I'll show you that in a minute. So it's actually good that we haven't done it. So it hasn't harmed you at all. So and obviously looking at interest rates just before, they have actually fallen overnight further. Liquidity, we mentioned I don't know what page it is on your one, but mentioning the liquidity ratio 128%, it has to be greater than 110%. So well within policy there.
We're on page 41, by the way, of the agenda. Thanks, Miles.
And the cost of funds is 6.07 as at 19th of February. Look, I have to be quite honest, that's quite high. It's one of the higher ones of local authorities, but the simple reason for that is that you start borrowing from the LGFA when rates were high. And it was just simply a matter of time. There's nothing that could be done about it because, when we first started looking at it, rates were considerably lower. And then they've moved up, but we have seen the peak, and I'll show you that. On the next page, that I'll sort of jump ahead of it, does show the debt and capital profile, and where that blue line goes below the red lines. Oh, that'll be later on. That's where the policy breach is. Now, the good news is we do include in the presentation, it's on there, I presume it's your page 42.
Yep.
The interest rate projection, I've got an update of this, but it does show that you're actually at peak interest rates as far as the cost of funds goes. And they will drop down to, we project about 5% over the next couple of years. And if your debt, and that's just based on your current debt level now, if your debt levels go up, which I've talked to Saskia about, and which they will, that will actually drop your cost of funds further because you will be borrowing more debt and your debt level will be going up, but it will be borrowed at a lower rate. So that will actually push your cost of funds down. We can remodel this and do it on the projected cost of funds. I talked about Saskia last week, but because that hasn't been finalised, we couldn't put the projected cost, we couldn't put the projected debt level in, which would have altered that cost of funds graph, and as I say, it would be below 5%. So I'm pretty confident you can get 1% lower than what you've got at the moment. Then we have the various metrics. I don't think I need to go into them, and your funding and the LGFA borrow rates that are applicable. So that's the report at the moment. We do mention the policy breach and the reason why we didn't have it in there as well. Why we were policy compliant. So that's the report. I apologise for the earlier one. I think I had a photo of the road from Glenorchy on the cover. Our analyst put it in around, and it was pointed out by someone that we had the wrong one. So I think I'm pretty sure in saying that was selling up at Central Daily. So
Glenorchy Road was noted, Miles. Now, Miles, you want to take us through some of your commentary, or because then we'll come back to exactly what you just helpfully taken us through, which is that. So let's have a quick look at the commentary, and then we'll reflect on that relative to the core markets that you've given us.
So what's happening at the moment, and there is quite a bit happening. We've had the peak interest rates. I'm pretty sure both in the US, and there's a chart coming up, and in New Zealand. And the central banks around the world have moved from tightening interest rates to control them, to get on top of inflation, to halting their tightening cycles, and now looking to start easing official interest rates at some point. And at some point is the crucial bit. There's a bit of a standoff at the moment between the markets and the central bank, because the central banks, both in the US, and I'll probably focus on New Zealand more, but they need to control inflation. Inflation was a result of COVID, and the unexpected result of COVID. And to control inflation, you have to put interest rates up, you have to slow the economy down, and that brings the inflation rate down. In New Zealand, the Reserve Bank have been very specific in that they want to control inflation, and that is their primary focus. And if the result of that control of inflation is that it slows the economy down and it produces pain in the economy and it leads to recession, they said that's the unfortunate consequence of tightening interest rates, having interest rates high and higher for longer. They see inflation as a bigger evil, or a bigger problem than a recession. I'm not entirely sure that I agree with that, but they've been very specific on that. The markets, on the other hand, they are actually of the view. So the Reserve Bank, and it will come up in a minute, but the Reserve Bank is saying if because the inflation is still sticky, that we won't be cutting, they won't be cutting the cash rate, the official cash rate until the middle of September of next year, whereas the markets are projecting that those cuts to start coming about a year earlier. So what the markets are doing is about front running these interest rate cuts, and what they're doing is that they're saying that when the economy slows to the extent that they project, and the economy has got big problems at the moment, I think, is that the Reserve Bank won't be able to stand by and hold interest rates, and that they'll actually have to start cutting. So it just depends on, you know, the result of the Reserve Bank, whether they will be prepared to do that in the face of what's probably coming up. But that's the dynamic that's happening. And the other recent events were that we had, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had the ANZ come out and say that cash rate was going up twice, once in the monetary policy statement we've just had, and the other one in May. It would take from 5.5 to 6. It got a lot of attention in the media. It pushed interest rates up dramatically, or not dramatically, quite noticeably. I didn't agree with the methodology that they used and the rationale and the logic that they used to justify there. They actually, what they seemed to say were shits and sharrots. All of their chief economists were saying was that, well, the Reserve Bank has said that they're going to push interest rates up, so I think they will. And I thought, well, I don't think they said that. They said that there is a lot, we may have to push interest rates up. This was back in November that they had the last monetary policy statement. They only projected the cash rate to go up to 5.7, so they didn't even factor it in the total hike. But she seemed to use that as a justification. Well, it had the unfortunate consequence of it. So it actually led some people into fixing interest rates. There was some conspiracy theories that they must, the ANZ being the biggest bank, must know what's happening, and they've got a line into the Reserve Bank, and so this is going to happen. Unfortunately, that's what did happen. It pushed interest rates up, and she was wrong. I mean, they can make a call, that's fine, but I just thought in the result that it produced and the logic and the logic that they used wasn't right, but they have come down. So, and then we had the monetary policy statement last week, which was unexpectedly dovish. And are you familiar with the dovish and the hawkish? What those mean? Like, if the Reserve Bank or even economists, if they come out with a hawkish statement, it's that they're quite optimistic and they're saying the economy's going looking strongly. It may lead to higher inflation and therefore interest rates will have to go up. If it's a dovish statement, then it's that the economy, it's more pessimistic, and the economy looks like it's got more headwinds, inflation's under control, and the economy will slow, growth will slow, and that will lead to lower interest rates. The market thought they would hold, most of the market, despite what the ANZ said, they thought they would hold the cash rate at 5.5, but they would talk up, in other words, it would be hawkish, but it was actually dovish. They pointed to lower inflation, that inflation was coming down, was lower growth, and the capacity constraints in the economy were easing, unemployment was going up. The only thing they mentioned was that on the counter to it was that migration was leading to higher inflation. So it was unexpected, and it led to interest rates falling sharply by about 0.25% for the term rates, 0.3, and that's a big move as a result of what the central bank does. So that's the overview. So the next slide, I won't spend too much time on these. So those are that's the US 10-year Treasury bond yield in black. That's the global benchmark for interest rates, and the New Zealand 10-year rate in blue. You can see, I haven't got a pointer, but that peak is just there. That's the peak in October, and then you can see the low that we had in just back to who's driving? April. The low further over that we had in December. They're coming back this way. That's it. Both in the US and New Zealand. Then rates have actually gone up since then, since the low that we had in December, but they have come down again after the monetary policy statement. But you can see the two are very closely correlated. And I believe that peak that we saw in October was the peak, and the rates have come down. So the next one, I just put this in as a wee bit of a, it's not, well, it's slightly relevant, but I just thought I came across it this week and I just think it's pretty staggering graphic. So US national debt is now 34 trillion. I showed this to Queenstown Lakes yesterday and I said, if you think you've got a problem with debt, look at it. So the what we call pink coloured line, pink coloured is the debt covered by the public. So the public is everyone, you know, the normal mum and dad investors, not them so much, you know, it's the big fund managers, it's the insurance companies, anyone who's an investor, the hedge funds, and then the yellow is that held by intergovernmental holdings, which because other foreign banks, sorry, central banks hold debt by the countries because that's part of their reserve, because they have to hold liquidity. So it's 34 trillion. It goes up by $1 trillion every 100 days. And if I don't know if you've seen the US debt clock, it's in Times Square, but it's also on the net. And it's in real time. Has anyone seen it? It goes, I timed it the other day, it goes up by $1 million every 30 seconds. US debt will actually reach, so the interest on US debt is very close, I think, to their total defence spending, which is about 800 or 900 billion a year. The next one. Now, the reason why they think these central banks around the world have actually finished their tightening cycles and that they will now be moving to an easing cycle is because inflation, you know, this COVID-induced inflation has been got under control, and it's coming down in New Zealand. It's down to 4.7. The one thing the Reserve Bank is concerned about, I probably should have mentioned it earlier, is with inflation, you have tradables inflation, which is subject to foreign intervention or foreign influences, exports, imports, and then you have non-tradables, which is the domestic economy. And that is at 5.9%, and that's what's causing the Reserve Bank some concern. And the reason for that non-tradables inflation was rentals, construction costs, insurance, electricity, and you can probably guess the last one. Rates.
Right,
Yeah. And you know, we all know what's happening with rates, over forthcoming years. So that doesn't factor in some of the increases that are happening. But 50 seconds leaves going off this topic a bit, but my specialty is local government, and the concerns that I've had, the two concerns that I have, we have about 35 councils around the country as clients, and is rate affordability and the debt levels that are being forecast by councils. We're seeing, I was at another council the other day, and they were having some work done in reception. And that was because they were having to beef up security, because when these rate increases happen, they're expecting, possible, some unpleasant experiences in reception when people come and complain about their rates. Rates that are, I think, one council said their rates arrears are now 3 times what they were a year or so ago. And obviously the debt levels is the other one, which you'll be well aware of. The next one, that's the forecasts for the various banks have got, and the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank's in the blue, just flatlining out. But the ANZs did have their projection going up to 6, but they brought that back up the monetary policy statement. The lowest one is coming down to about 2.5%. I think that's BNZ. ANZ are having it coming down to about 3.25%. So it's just they vary as to the timing of it. The Reserve Bank are not projecting the OCR to start coming down until next year. But there is a general consensus that they are coming down, obviously, but it's just, will it be this year, will it be next year? My view is that it'll be later this year. I think it's the September quarter, but don't hold me to that. The next one, now this is slightly relevant, and I'll explain later, but why it is relevant, but the big debate at the moment is where is fair value for the official cash rate and the 90-day rate. Well, this shows the average over the last going back 30 years is 4.53%. Now, if you take off the highs that you had, back in the first 5 years of this crack, I mean, we think that a good average, a reasonable average or a fair value for the 90-day rate is about 3.5%. Inflation is lower than what it used to be. That's why that 4.53, I think, is overly high. And one of the key reasons why inflation, we're just in a lower inflation environment because one of the big reasons is technology, because it's made the workplace so much more efficient. I mean, I think my father's day when I had to, he would write his letters out and go off to the typing pool and they would type in and come back. He did meet my mother there, so it's one good thing about it. But nowadays, I mean, we all do our letters. We don't send them off to the secretaries. It's so much more efficient, and also the cost of electronics is down. I mean, even airfares, I mean, I remember, gosh, showing my age 40 years ago to London. I went to Australia once, and it was $179. I was there the other day. It was 250. That's 40 years later. So we are in a lower inflation environment. So we think 3.5% is a good level as far as fair value goes. The next one. Now this is relevant too. So, and I'll show you why it is in a minute. But since the OCR came in, we've had the various hiking and the easing cycles. Now with the hiking cycle, the long one in the sort of the yellow, the mustard colour, is the lead up to the global financial crisis, where the rate went up by, what is it, it was 325 points, 3.25%. That happened over 4 years. But then we've had the one that we've just had, which was only over 2 years, it was 525 points. So that was exceptional. Now, if you look at the easing cycles, if you take out the big one, which was 575 points, that's the result of the GFC. We've had 5 easing cycles in total, taking out that GFC-induced one, the global financial crisis. We've had 4. Of those 4, 3 would be for 175 points, and the other one was for 75 points. So we think that an easing cycle, because we've gone up so sharply, maybe a wee bit more, but 175 to 200 points is a reasonable expectation for the easing cycle, which would take the cash rate to 3.5%. The next one, this just shows the official cash rate in red, 90-day rate in blue, the 90-day rate in black, sorry, and the 5-year swap rate in blue. Now, the important thing here is that you can see going back earlier in the graph that most of the time, 5-year rate is above the official cash rate and the 90-day rate, and that's normal. But short-term rates are normally lower than long-term rates. That's quite normal. What we've got at the moment is the opposite, where long-term rates are lower. That's what we call an inverted yield curve. And we've only had it twice since year 2000. And it's normally a precursor to interest rates falling, because the market is preempting it. The 90-day, the OCR and the 90-day rate are tied to what the Reserve Bank does. But the swap rates and that 5-year rate is totally driven by the markets. They can do what they like. So they're effectively saying interest rates are going lower. And this inverted yield curve, it produces lower forward start swap rates and the balance of them come to a note. This is very unusual. What we've got at the moment is said only twice in 20 years. Just to give you an example of what happened last week, the top box shows monetary policy expectations, market pricing for the official cash rate. Now, I won't go into the maths of it, but if you look at May 24, the markets are projecting the cash rate to be at 5.62. What that implies is that it would either be at 5.50, or it is at the moment, or 5.75. What that implies is that it's a 48% chance that it will be at 575 because 562 is 48% of the way between 550 and 575. Does that make any sense? And in the rate that they thought it would be at in May 25 was 472. Now, today, which was when I did this on Tuesday before I left the office, that 562 is now 550. So they're factoring in no chance of the cash rate rise. And that May was 472, now it's 450, and they've actually bought they put another month on, or 2 months on, and each month obviously saying last setting down 435. So that's the change that was brought about by the monetary policy statement last week. This is Central Otago's position. So the blue is, so I think I've explained before, I'm not sure if there's some new members here. Do you want me to quickly go through it, or you're all okay with it?
No, I think it never hurts for a refresher.
You operate within policy lands and are mentioned in the report. You had 0 to 2 years, 2 to 4 years, and 4 to 8 years. It's 3580, so obviously here. The rate level is obviously a debt of 25 million. This, if anyone's way here, that first line is the 0 to 2 years in the policy, and that's in your report. And you have to have a minimum of 40% of your debt covered, and that's just, there should be a red line there, but that's your fixed rate cover. There would be a red line there that's just hidden by the green line, and that's your maximum. You can have 100%. And then between 2 and 4 years, you have to have a minimum of 25% cover and a maximum of 80%. And then between 4 and 8, you don't have to have any cover, and a maximum of 60%. And this is your actual level of cover here. Now, this is represented by the fixed rate bonds that you've taken out. So your policy compliant here, the green line just adds it up. But this is the bit that you haven't got policy where you're outside of policy. It's not huge. This will come, this line here has come back and breached that in probably 3 or 4 months' time because of time erosion. That will move back every month. So we have to get more cover to cover that. Now we can either do, to rectify that breach, we can either do it using a fixed rate bond when you get in new debt, or we can use an interest rate swap. So if you just go forward button, please. If we did do an interest rate swap, 5 million starting in July 27 going to July 30, it's 4.27. And that produces that line, so your policy compliant, will mean that in 6 months' time we have to do something else there, but we have to have this interest rate swap deal in line in place before we can do that. Now, the important number there is the 4.27. So it doesn't increase your cover here, we'll do that later. But because of this thing called the inverted yield curve that I said, that rate 4.27 compares to the 90-day rate at the moment 5.65. So now this is the bit I've been getting to for the last 10 or 15 minutes. I would be targeting, well, when we could do it, well, first we have to be able to do it today. How far off we are starting?
So actually just check my emails now. There's conversations still happening between the lawyers. We've gone back to National Australian Bank, pushing back a little bit on a couple. As a requirement within the agreement, I do need to take it to council. So I'm very hopeful that we'll get up to the 24th of April council meeting for approval to enter into this agreement.
I'm looking for that rate to go below 4%. And that rate is probably below 4.20 now. I did 2 or 3 days ago, rates 4. Now, please tell, this is the important bit, and tell me if I'm not making any sense here. Bruce is normally used to me not making sense. So, the 5 years, oh no, if that rate goes below 4%, say if that gets to 3.5, 8 or so. That's because it's inverted yield curve. And what it's doing is that it's because of the market's expectations for interest rates to fall and the maths associated with swaps is that it's producing a lower rate in the future than what we've got now. So it's factoring in these interest rate cuts. So what it's actually doing is that gets below 4. And this is 4.27 compared to 5.65 for the 90-day rate. Normally that rate would be higher, but because it's an unusual situation that we have. So what we're saying is, well, if we can get rates below 4% in the future, that's actually factoring in effectively about 175 points of interest rate cuts before they happen. So they might not even have, well, they will happen, but it's just the extent of it. But I'm saying, well, if we can get this below 4%, and it's giving us, effectively delivering us these 175 or 200 points of cuts, we just should do it. But with you have to do it to get policy compliant. But this is the beauty of the fact that we had this delay. It's given us this.
It's not often we're forced into doing something helpful.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'm very confident we'll get below 4% for that. Are there any questions on that?
I've got a question. That's only for that one part. With the other rates, just so I'm clear, we're on a floating, aren't we? So it's only that one part of that 5 million that we've got essentially fixed that we're going to have to come back in. The rest of it is all on the floating.
Yeah. So, sorry, good point. I should have brought that up. So what the strategy is that, and this is the logic that we use, is that we use this inside to talk about this inverted yield curve all the time. But it's such an unusual situation that actually it is something that's quite useful. Then it produces a helpful result. When the easing cycle actually starts, these rates and this part of your hedging profile will come down. So what we adopt, what we call the backfilling strategy, where we do this first, and then when rates come down and the yield curve goes from going that way, which is higher short-term rates, it goes that way back to what's normal, and then we build this cover level up here. So my intention would be to have cover at least sort of there going forward. And then the only question I've wrapped up, I'm going to finish the next slide. There is a cost of funds. So it's slightly altered from the one in the report, and that's the projected cost of funds is this red one here. This is the projection for the 90-day rate, so it has it going below 4%. And as I said, you were in the unfortunate situation of having to get debt when rates were high. That's why we only had the minimum level of fixed rate debt. It costs you in the short term, but it will pay benefits. It'll be advantageous in the long term. And just repeating myself that when your debt goes higher, believe it or not, it'll produce lower your interest cost, but it will lower your average interest rate. So that's the good news. I mean, this comes down to what, probably 4.50 or so, 26%. So, you know, if your debt's, what does it start to get, 35, 40?
We, in terms of our projections for next year,
Yeah.
we're still modelling that. We are ELT meeting on Tuesday to go through the numbers. Yeah, so not sure yet. But we definitely will be drawing more debt next year.
And I think that's the last one. Is that yeah,
Brilliant. Thank you, Miles. That's really helpful. I think we need to, we'll keep moving, but that's really important. So in fact, we later on we'll also get to our financial results, which gets you back to that. I just want to reflect a couple of really key points here that Miles has raised, which is our role as a risk committee is clearly to check that we are inside the 4 limits. So if you go back to page 40 of your agenda, the little greyish box on the left-hand side becomes important because those are the limits that we have set ourselves, or have been set for us, by the way, because if we're out of our GFA, there's a debt limit that we can have. So it becomes really important to understand that for this current, well, we have our current treasury management policy and who we borrow from, there are certain limits that we have to meet. So look, I do reflect, Miles, when I first read this, because I hadn't been aware about history. I saw 6%, but it's back up in the chair when I read the average rate cost. But I get that now. It's because it was actually that we're relatively recent in our debt raising, and we've had to take it at 6%. But that's a substantially larger number than any other one that I've seen around the country at this point. And I think you've hinted at that. Sorry, you've said that because of what's been around. So I think the first thing I would say for us as a committee is actually that is quite an exposure, but it is what it is, because it's where we're at. Having said that, you've heard strategies from Miles, which will, because we're going to increase it in particular, that will influence. The thing that actually becomes important, and Miles spent a lot of time on that, is actually we are in breach of our current policy. And I think, Saskia, we need to note that by the way now in our resolution. So I'm going to propose that we just alter our resolutions. So that comes with this second line in the little box, is fixed interest rate cover within policy control limits. And without going too far back in the slides, it's back to that gap that Miles pointed out in terms of what was it, February 28th. So if you go over the page to page 41, you'll see that gap between the red line and the blue. And you've given us your strategy, Miles, to correct that. Yeah. Which looks like it will play out once you've had negotiations with the bank, then you'll come back to council for formal approval to take out that cover, correct?
Yes, correct.
And that will correct it over time. Plus, you hinted at, and I don't want us to go back into it, but your backfilling strategy will keep us within those bands, which we see as being prudent for organisation that size, correct?
The intention isn't just to scrape within those bands and do the minimum that we have to do. The intention is to go well into those bands when rates go down.
Yeah, take advantage of that reducing.
So then when we get to looking at way again, when you get the next tightening cycle, we're not even in the easing cycle yet, that you'll be protected from it.
Yeah.
So don't think that I'm just going to go on the bottom, no.
Yeah, and I think it's important to reflect those councils which have a substantially low average cost of funds were able to fix it in the favourable days of low interest rates. But they're facing challenges that's debt returns, so that's occurring there. Okay, so that's really helpful in that sense. This, by the way, when we get to the financial performance, why our debt position and whether we are achieving or not becomes very important, because we don't care if it's going to have debt, it does have a significant influence, but it also means that our treasury management policies all of a sudden become a bit more different. Okay, so that's fine. So over time, our overall interest rate will drop, albeit our interest bill won't, because we've got more debt on board. Good. So is everybody fine with that? Is there anything else that we need to discuss with our position? And why this little report, which is very helpful from you, thanks Miles, is valuable for us as a committee. Yeah, Tracy.
Just, is there any implications of being outside of the policy for us? I mean, obviously I know we talk about a minor breach, but still a breach is a breach. So is there any further implications?
Notice I said these are our financial prudence policies.
Yeah.
So we are at this stage outside what we consider to be financially prudent. I don't want to be sort of dark and say therefore we are imprudent, because I don't think that's actually the case. We would be imprudent if we didn't acknowledge this and if we weren't going to do something about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's important that we actually just pass a separate motion with the receipt to note that we're outside the policy bands. We acknowledge the strategy in place to correct this, and it will be brought back to council. So yes, we are technically outside where we feel comfortable, but we're doing something about it.
That's outside our policy, not GFA's.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, the only thing our GFA really has on us is actually our debt to revenue ratio, and we're well and truly inside that. Okay.
If you like, in the report, what I could also include is and these would have to be supplied by you, like an independent verifier, but just for the report, there are 3 key ratios with the LGFA. I've got liquidity one, and we have to be about 10%, but that's what Bruce said, the
debt to revenue.
debt to revenue. What's your
Interest rate.
percentage at the moment?
Pardon?
You know, your percentage at the moment?
Well, 25 over whatever.
We've got about 23% or something.
Yeah,
We're at
25, so 108.
8 is our
108 is the
maximum.
Right.
So yeah, 25.
Then say you go to 175%.
That's right.
And then you have, and interest as a percentage of rates shall not exceed 25%.
15, sorry, 25, yes, sorry.
And interest as a percentage of total revenue should not exceed 20%.
Yeah.
So I can actually put these in the report, but as I said, it'll just have to be provided by staff here. I
think it would, I think quite frankly, it'd be useful to have that as well, because that provides a complete picture. So sorry, yes, I had assumed that we're aware of that, but actually those ratios are well and truly, we're inside in terms of prudence. So I think it'd be useful to have that in the future, Miles.
Oh.
Okay, and I appreciate that's a level of communication between the two, but that becomes very important. And I trust that other than to build on that prudence, we should see this quarterly. Because actually the markets move, and it moves, we need to know that we're in the right place from a treasury management perspective. So that's really, really helpful.
Can I just mention one other point, which has just come up? It's got 2 or 3 minutes. It's quite a
Max, mate. Keep going.
Standard & Poor's came out with a report. I don't know if you've seen it, Bruce. Sorry, I should call you Mr. Jim.
No, you call me Bruce, I prefer it. As long as you can share that report. Can you share that report with us? Because I know what you're about to say. So if you've got it, I'd like to see it. Keep going.
The report.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Standard & Poor's, the rating agency, came out the other day and downgraded put 15 councils in New Zealand on, these are ones with credit ratings on negative outlook. And the reason for that was that they have about 5 or 6 categories that they judge, that they rate on. And one of them is the institutional framework. And in New Zealand, they always say that in their rating reports, the institutional framework is very strong in New Zealand. And they rate councils, each council, within 5 or 6 categories. They have other economic metrics, they have financial performance, liquidity. But this institutional framework one, their rating is, they have 5 different categories, and within each rating they score it 1 to 5. 1 is the best, 5 is the worst. Every council in New Zealand scores a 1 for the institutional framework, which is the best possible. They came out just 2 or 3 weeks ago and said that the institutional framework is weakening, and that there is a possibility that the institutional framework score will go down to 2 for every council, which will automatically lead to a 1-notch downgrade for all of those councils that are rated. But sort of preempting that, they put 15 councils on negative watch, because they thought were more at risk of an immediate downgrade. I think if you're on negative watch, there's a 30% chance that you'll be downgraded. It's either in the next 90 days or 1 year. I can't remember which one it is. And the main reason why they're concerned about the institutional framework, that institutional framework is sort of, the environment that they operate in, the interaction with the government. The main reason why it is because of capital expenditure and 3 waters. 3 waters was the big one. And certainly, and the debt levels that are likely to be produced. So it caused quite a bit of, I think, concern in the local government sector. And the other thing that is a byproduct of that or is associated with it is that quite a number of councils, because they're not losing their 3 waters debt, well, we don't know if they are yet or not, or what's going to happen, that they're going to breach their 175% revenue. I mean, there are some who were absolutely bravado, who were just banking on the fact that they were going to lose 3 waters, they would get everything debt taken on. And now it's not. So there are some councils who are actually going to be going to get a credit rating, because if you get a credit rating, that 175% debt to revenue goes up to 200, allows you to go to 280% as long as you get the appropriate credit rating, and no one has it. So it's an action that quite a number of unrated, a small number of unrated councils are looking at right at the moment.
And the implication from that, Miles, again, if you've got a copy of it, I'd love you to flick it to us, please. That would be helpful. Is actually, I think if I recall correctly, Miles wanted to say, as we think about 3 waters reform, it actually then starts to stress the importance of balance sheet separation. And you don't automatically achieve that by just moving debt off to a CCO.
No.
So that report is quite scary. I mean, they're putting a bit of a shot across the bows of all of us actually about the reality and need of three water reform. Because you're right, there's a good number of us who don't want to see the balance sheet with water in. Yes, Tim.
Looking further out and being paranoid as I am, what do these sort of things, what's the implication of these for our cross guarantees under the GFA? For, you know, if other councils actually do tip? Nothing, still so far over the horizon, we don't have to worry about it. That's exactly what I wanted you to say, Miles. Thank you.
The LGFA, just going to be a bit of about 1 minute first. It's one of the best examples of local government funding in the world. It's held up as globally, if when they set it up, they based it on the Nordic model and improved it. They have, it's 20% owned by the government. It has a facility for debt management office of $600 million, which is like a bank facility for debt management offices. The government, that can be increased to $1.6 billion. It varies, but I think at the moment they have about $2 billion in liquidity. So what they've done is they've borrowed roughly $20 billion in total, and they've lent $18 billion. So they have $2 billion just invested in liquid financial market investments in case of that situation. They have all the monitoring. They have the audit, they have the audit department not auditing, and you still have the access to rates. So there are all these guarantees and safeguards built into the LGFA.
I don't have to add that to my list of things that keep me awake at night.
No.
Great, thank you.
Interestingly, S&P didn't actually put the LGFA on negative watch.
Oh, that's true then, isn't it? No.
Okay, thank you for that. And look, that's been very helpful. I'm glad you hear, Miles, and I'm glad we took this time to have the general discussion as well as all the focus and specifics about us here at Central Otago. I'm just wondering if we could just move to the recommendation, please, which is on page 35 of our agenda, which is that that the reports received. I'd like to move from the floor a second one, which is the committee notes the breach and interest rate cover in the years 2 to 4 bands and the steps that management will take with our advisor to rectify the situation. As it's just to recognise that we've got it and done something about it. Sarah, you want me to say it again, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
If you can't read my writing, I'm sure. The committee notes breach and interest cover in the years 2 to 4 bands, and that it notes management in conjunction with its advisor will rectify the position.
And that's coming to council anyway.
It's coming to council,
yeah.
So we'll see that. It sounds like it's in April. Is that right?
Conjunction with its advisor
will rectify the position. Brilliant. Then I'll move that. Then I've suggested I'm going to move it. Do I have a second, please? Thank you, Tracy. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, it's carried. Brilliant. Miles, thank you again, buddy.
Thank you.
Back to Arrowtown. Time for a run.
It's later on. Well, I'm actually meeting with Saskia after that.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Enjoy that Alexandra sunshine. We'll do the work here. So you got a lunchtime meeting, have you?
After that.
Oh, after lunch. I've got to say, we put me under a bit of pressure, but I'm happy to try and meet the pressure.
Okay.
Thank you, Mom. Have a good day, buddy. Thank you. Well, here we go, folks. Do we need a break for a couple of minutes or go?
We buy a break.
Need a break for a couple of minutes? Okay, thank you. Do we just let's make it only 5, Tim. you for that.
Scary, yeah.
Can we move next on to the suite of policies that we need to run through, but they're all important in the way that we discussed earlier this morning when we had the sort of the summary of where the policies are at. So I think I've got first up fraud, bribery and corruption policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to be speedy in the interest of time. So the policy was due review at the start of this year. So we have reviewed and updated fraud, bribery and corruption policy to enhance it, to make sure that the roles and responsibilities are clarified and that the steps to report and investigate suspected fraud, bribery and corruption are clear. And how to recognise fraud, bribery and corruption. And one thing that was not explicitly detailed in the covering report was the inclusion of elected and appointed members within the scope of this policy. So the previous policy referenced the Local Authorities Members' Interest Act. And while obviously that act does still apply to them, it wouldn't preclude you from being within the scope of CODC's fraud, bribery and corruption policy, so we haven't added you in. And other than that, we've also started putting together some training slides because we recognise that policy is only effective if people actually understand what their responsibilities are. And the procedures that sit beneath this policy are also being updated, and those will be rolled out to all staff. Yes,
Thank you. Appreciate that and appreciate giving us both a clean copy of this on the various. Do we have questions, folk? Please, Tracy.
Yeah, just in the policy and roles and responsibilities, where it says 52, I think it is, the independent chair of the A&R committee will receive notification. Do we need to say by when? Like, is there a time frame, or is it, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but is there a requirement for a time? Because it could be after the fact, or at what point does it need to be notified?
Staff have,
I don't know the
and I
answer.
have, obviously I have a view, but
Yes.
what are staff intending through the policy?
So this is only if a report of fraud, bribery or corruption is in relation to the chief executive. So I guess the circumstances would be particularly unique in that case. So whether that notification does need to be immediate or whether that would require some further investigation because of the circumstances, I guess would be up to Saskia, who will receive any reports immediately.
So
And then we'll get them on to.
in that case, a very unusual case, if that was to ever happen in this organisation, that would be a pretty immediate conversation between myself and the chair. So we can put some extra wording around that, because I'd obviously be wanting to work with our chair to go through the process of next steps and whatnot. So we can say something like within 24 hours of notification, or Mr. Chairman, have you got a view of how immediate you'd like that?
Actually, can I say, firstly, I think notification should be more than just chief executive. Should be chief executive.
Across the board.
I would like to just need a slightly, and it's, I'll leave it qualitative, any significant fraud.
Okay.
Suspected fraud, sorry, is, and the point is suspected. It's important that there's a level of understanding of what is occurring, and it's rare that would need to be the case, but I would expect if there was a significant fraud being investigated within the organisation involving any staff member, that as I say, if it was significant, but as chair, I would be informed. I think there's less time boundedness on that one, but if it was the chief executive, I'd expect to be known on the day it becomes head. You know, the complaint occurs, to be honest, it'll be instantaneous. Because it's a significant matter. We shouldn't be looking at you, Peter. It's a significant matter for any organisation if the chief executive is under that suspicion, whether or not the allegation proves correct or not. If it's proved to be false, that's still a significant issue inside the organisation, probably. So that's instantaneous action, if I can put it that way. I would be disappointed if say to Rose tomorrow, if by the end of the day I didn't know. I think it would be inappropriate. So if that needs to be put into it, I'm sort of semi-relaxed, but that would be my expectation. But I would be comfortable, I would be more comfortable with included notification of any significant fraud, and I can leave that to the judgment of the organisation or suspected fraud on the part of the chief executive. Right, anything else people like yes, Tano?
I've just got a couple of questions. In relation to the fraud control officer role being fulfilled by group manager business support, is any additional training offered by CODC to support that role?
To support myself?
Yes.
Good question, no, not at this stage. So that's actually a really valid point, and maybe Amelia, you and I should take that offline and probably involve Peter in that conversation too, as to what that looks like, so that we, in the event we have any, that I'm ready to go.
Cool. And then I just wondered where it talks about where the report relates to an elected or appointed member, and then as the group you or Blue Fleck identify a suitable investigator that may be internal staff members or external consultants. Are there any issues around an internal staff member investigating an elected member or appointed member?
Can I just check on this one if I can help? Sorry, I should have checked it last night. Is not the code of conduct also relevant here? Because actually, I think under the code of conduct, it mentions fraud and bribery and corruption from an elected member perspective. So if there was
It does. I don't think it talks process, it talks outcomes off the top of my head.
But you're wrong. Well, I would have thought fraud, bribery and corruption was a breach of the code, in which case there's the investigation provisions in there. Quite frankly, if it was a key member of the organisation, or indeed an elected member, you'd be almost honour bound. If not, it would be wise to get an external investigator.
And I just had a
seriousness.
question for you, Tim, with your employment lawyer hat on, around whether it needs to be specific on page 63, where it talks about the group manager will report instances of suspected or actual fraud, bribery, corruption to relevant parties, including potentially a suspected individual's employer. And I guess if that were an external contractor, whether the case by case basis, I would just be worried, where does it tie into us notifying potentially an external employer?
It would be not what they do with it is what triggers the employment issues with their employees. So if a Fulton Hogan person looks to be taking something, comes to Saskia, she goes to Julie. Is that at Fulton Hogan Audit? It's what Julie does next that would trigger there and fall back on us. I wouldn't think.
I just wondered around us notifying, would we need to be really clear that it's in their role as a contractor for this business, as opposed to, could there be something whereby a Fulton Hogan employee is applied for a building consent and they're trying to bribe the building consent officer, but it's not actually related to their employment?
Again, that would still be for Fulton Hogan to decide before it triggered any. He'd be heading into defamation law as opposed to employment law from our risk. I would think.
At a straight level, that's our problem with that person, neutral of who they're employed by. We've got an individual that's applying for consent, trying to bribe an official. That requires our own investigation. It's not something that's I think
it's going to be captured
neutral. It does raise challenges if there might be wider implications, and you'd have to treat it on a case by case basis. It wouldn't give rise to us bringing Fulton Hogan and said, "You one of your employees, yada yada yada." I'll be very careful about that because I think it's my view, Tom.
Yeah.
In response to the code question, the challenge we have with the code is only members and the chief executive may make a complaint under the code.
Oh, okay, fair enough. It's a key point. Yeah.
And I think you'd have to go through this process first before you then
you would
could subsequently be code of conduct.
Fair point. No, thank you. Good line. Thank you. I still think it would need an independent.
External, that's right. So we can proceed in further.
Yeah.
I had a few.
Okay.
So page 61, reporting suspected bribery, etc. Says when a member of staff witnesses or has suspicions, what about if an elected member? There's no pathway for an elected member if they see something that troubles them.
Well, they can probably first of all come to yourself and my
Oh,
stuff.
sure, but it needs to be in here. Yeah. If we're going to be subject to it, then the pathways have to be open as well.
Yeah.
And then that follows through a little bit. Sorry, I got myself a little bit tangled up doing this, so I'm going to try not to. That's okay, we've answered that one. So we go to page 63, and at the top, absolute due respect. The business support manager, I'm just trying to remember what my point was. I've got here clarify it cannot be themselves, so but it's an external consultant. So the people and cultural manager will appoint a sufficiently skilled or experienced member of staff to complete an investigation. Do we need to have in there that it can't be themselves, so that it actually is clear that it's somebody else on staff falls into that category? And then where it's got the next paragraph down, that relevant authorities, including police and the serious fraud office, will be and relevant parties will be informed. We don't have a process for what our own reaction would be as an organisation. So if we have an external, pick on Fulton Hogan because we've already done it. You know, the manager of Fulton Hogan's doing something. No, let's take it smaller than that. A one-man contracting organisation has put in fraudulent invoices in a hypothetical. We don't say there what we're going to do. It's obvious what we're going to do. Do we need to say in there what we're going to do as part of our policy? We're not having that person back, but we're talking about referring to police, we're doing this, doing that. We don't say what our internal reaction would be.
Wouldn't that be a procedure as opposed to a policy?
Potentially, yeah. It's just a question I wanted to raise as to whether. I don't think it actually matters too much. I'm probably being a bit pedantic, but I did think it was. We were saying what all these external reactions are to a contractor defrauding us. What's our own reaction? The next one we've handled, and I'm doubling up what I've already said there. So we've covered that one, and I think that's me. Thank you.
We can definitely look at an internal procedure that can sit alongside this. Amelia, what are your thoughts?
Yes, so a procedure does exist which needs to be updated in line with these policy changes. So that will delve deeper into different potential scenarios that might need to be addressed in different ways, and who the appropriate people would be to advise on those situations.
The other thing I had was just wondering whether a flowchart, not as part of it, but as a consequence of it, might be helpful for staff in particular to know, what do I do? You're going to read this when you've seen your co-worker take a fiver. Yeah. A simple flowchart is there to there, something like that.
Yeah.
With different scenarios. Yeah.
That's a good idea. We can put that on SharePoint because you're absolutely right. And the instance that you might be, 2 years ago, I have seen something about this. Yeah.
And if it's on SharePoint, it won't go to elected members.
Yeah. Oh, we can definitely get it to elected members. Yeah.
Thank you.
Really, just one sort of big overarching question. Have you had reference to the integrity framework the Office of the Auditor General has put out in the preparation of all this?
Yes, so we did reference a little document to align with best practice.
I think one of the things that I was just trying to reflect on this, and I don't actually have any trouble with the policy, by the way, and we can take on board the notes that have been made. That's good. This in some sense is about actually what you do when you suspect or you've detected fraud. It doesn't actually say what our policy is about prevention of fraud. And I think it's said its suite of integrity policies will also include a prevention. Now, I mean, that's another thing I don't want to add to your list, but I probably am, I guess, in some sense, Saskia. Can I just ask you guys to think about that as to whether that's either something for the next upgrade of this, or whether that's something that we need, but normally there would be an idea while we want to do something that's right, as you say, when somebody sees, well, it doesn't look right, what do I do? Actually, there's a bigger thing. What's our approach to preventing fraud in the first place?
And there are a lot of things this organisation does do that we could wrap up into.
And check whether that's needed. I don't want us to make, undertake unduty, unnecessary, there's a lot of uns there, unnecessary work. So I just suggest that it's a process.
I can look at that. It might be, might not be a policy. It might be a conversation with the committee, the meeting around questions we have and
Yeah.
things that we do.
Free. So the motion is we receive and accept of the level, accept the level of significance. If I got that right, yes, level of significance, recommends that council adopt the fraud, bribery and corruption policy. I'm not going to say with the amendments, but I'm making the assumption we've got the, what seem to me at this point relatively minor amendments. You'll put those, clarify that through the code, and I'm comfortable with that goes up. We'll move in a second for that motion, please. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tamar. With the motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? It's carried. We've got the long-term plan now. We've got a few other policies. Do we need to, with Amelia here, is she responsible for those other ones, or?
No, she's off the hook, Nathan.
You're off the hook now.
Nathan's
Oh, so it's Nathan. Okay, we'll leave you in peace then, Amelia. Thank you for that. And we will keep with our agenda and move on to the long-term plan.
So this report, the purpose of this report is just to bring the committee, for those who weren't part of the council meeting, up to speed with a decision made at council when considering the options provided by the government for the preparation of the 2024-34 long-term plan. So to cut a bit of a long story short, in the journey that this long-term plan has been, is that the council opted to delay the adoption of the long-term plan by 1 year, and we are now starting down the road of a 24-25 annual plan. So is there any questions with regards to that? It is a very tight time frame to get this done, and staff are working really hard behind the scenes to achieve this, but it's a really good outcome in terms of our ratepayers being able to be very clear about invoicing and striking rates. And also it gives us the opportunity to do more work in preparation for the conversations coming up.
Thank you. Any comments from folk? Yeah, I think I probably will talk about this with it under the risk framework. I know it sounds like I'm contradicting you. I don't know whether it is good for the ratepayer. It's good for us that we get our billing out and we get our cash flow right for the first instalment. But the real issue is the rates amount the right amount? And that needs a long-term plan. So I'm conscious that while it's a really, for all the contextual stuff that you've got in here, absolutely get it. But actually, it's not the ideal position to be in, because we're relying on year 4 of a long-term plan, which is out of date. We know there's a few things coming down the train tracks at us. I'm not saying we're a train wreck, but I'm just saying, balance sheet's going to be under pressure for some big issues. We don't want to be doing this without some awareness of what is coming down the train tracks at us, and indeed whatever we set under the enhanced annual plan. I've got to make an assumption is progress towards that point, albeit we don't have that point defined as an LTP.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not it shouldn't be a rates holiday for the. I know it sounds like I'm trying to cane the rate paying, but it shouldn't be a rates holiday or kicking something down the road for a year.
It's in the context of that, when I made that statement, it was in the context of the whole LTP and the options that we got forward, and the fact that we've been go down here,
Yeah.
backwards and forwards. When you're considering those options, this is the best outcome for
Right.
that. If we had really clear direction from the government, it would go, and we're heading down the long-term plan route, and there was none of this. Absolutely, long-term plan is the way to go. But considering all the options that we have in front of us, that's the best one.
And can I just add to that? So you're absolutely right. There is obviously a risk in doing an annual plan that we're not taking that long horizon, but we did this morning hear from Julie over the next 10 years. What's it looking like in terms of 3 waters. We've got some big decisions for council to make give us direction on, 20th of March, we're bringing all the full budgets to council and to have conversations around things like depreciation and stuff, because that's one of our big drivers seen in the budget. And of course, there's risks of kicking that can down the road. So those conversations will be occurring in the context of it's just not, while it is a focus of 1 year, we can't just push all these costs to next year. That's not going to be good for our ratepayer either. So that will happen on the 20th of March.
Brilliant. That's good. Because there's one thing that if I think I'll go pick this up correctly from the paper that obviously council's considered and passed a motion on. So I'm not trying to rescind or turn anything here. So what is the plan? What is the at least the thinking about the timeline for the new LTP? It talks about sort of like a 2 to 3 month window. Are you going to try and adopt it? It looked like you were going to try and adopt the CD under the new approach before Christmas. Is that right?
So that's to do with the long-term plan.
Yeah, I realise that. I realise that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So doing that, we haven't exactly landed on the exact dates. Our focus has had to literally be absolutely on the annual plan, and then once we're getting that more aligned and slotted in, then our focus will revert back to the long-term plan. So I can't refer that at this stage.
Look, I like the idea. Sorry, I think there's somewhere that was the intention. I think that's actually a good intention. Because one of the risks, I don't think it is entirely relevant because next year's an election year. I think this is I think actually you do refer to that. We want to try and keep, that might be where you talk about pre-Christmas consultation. I think that's a really good point, and I think it's something to, in the madness of everything, it's enhancing your plan, would be good to know. One other thing is, and I think we may well come to it under our risks, so clearly that does keep the organisation under stress for a longer period. Because it was an annual report also here in the middle of this as well, not only an enhanced annual plan, a long-term plan in quick succession, but it's an annual report. I'm thinking probably the report on finance function here. There is substantial stress that we, for good reason, but we are nevertheless placing on the organisation. So I know that's been thought of. Okay, cool. Any other comments folk would like to raise at this point? I think we are receiving this. It's not like I mean, I think we're still taking basic presumption that actually it's the right answer, even if it's forced on us by circumstances. Like, any other points? There isn't. You've made a decision. It's fine. You're already in the process, like you've had this morning. So we received the report. We accept level of significance, and we note that the council has resolved. I'll move that, seeing I'm the one that's noting it for the first time. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Tamar. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you. Appreciate that, Christina. Very helpful. Privacy policy review. Back into our policies. Let's go for it.
Sorry, I just see the point you were making about the consultation, but it was referring to the digitisation discussion about working, not the long-term plan.
Okay. Yeah. Well, therefore, Peter, I would argue is I read that obviously wrongly. The stresses are still there, regardless of whether you're doing it pre. I mean, it's a greater stress if you're doing it pre-Christmas. It's still stress if you're doing it post-Christmas.
It'll be
in the more
post-Christmas.
conventional times.
Yeah.
It
And I
doesn't matter
think,
which way it's going.
and it also will be very dependent on the Audit New Zealand will be able to come in for the audit. So we'll obviously have that conversation with them. And as you point out for the finance team, it would be nice for the staff at some point this year to have some leave, and that's obviously been pretty hard.
Yes,
To
exactly.
manage, so we need to factor all that in before we get back into the LTP.
Thank you. Privacy policy. Did you, Nathan? Yep. Briefing.
So, the privacy policy was due for review. In addition to that, some recommendations for our last audit, we have strengthened the policy with tools relating to privacy breach notification procedure, request for personal information procedure, personal information collection, use and sharing guidelines, deployment request policy and associated procedure, and redaction guidelines and CCTV. In terms of the policy itself, we just made some minor changes, additions of responsibilities, accountabilities, addition of the breach of this policy, and the associated tools have been mentioned as well.
Thanks, Nathan. So it was a bit of a clean up, I think, if I picked it up right, or just an addition to get it right. Any comments or thoughts folk, on this one? Yes, Tim.
A couple of things. One, just, and I think the previous paper demonstrated, the one before demonstrated, that if there's any changes, it's really good to get a clean and track changes, because I haven't got a clue what's been changed.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. And maybe I'm confusing myself, but under scope, it says all elected members, council staff, temporary employees, contractors, and then absolutely everything after that refers to staff. So even though the scope applies to everyone else, so if you look one paragraph down from that, staff may only access, use and share information the council holds and so forth.
I will clean up.
I thought maybe those the top line could be put into users or something. Well, not, we're not employees.
Yeah, I'll come up.
Come up with something. Yeah, because otherwise, the scope means nothing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could be just a number, it just could be just put under the definitions clause, wouldn't it?
Yeah, pretty easy to fix, but it just, I mean, if we misbehave, we get our toys taken off us, which really they can't fire us.
It's a really important policy. It's interesting in my committee work here, perhaps for reasons which actually they've been raised in a bunch of areas. Privacy has become an increasingly bigger part of our life. And possibly because I'm becoming more sensitive, is almost as important as Lagoima. There's obviously a close relationship between the two, but I just would want to reflect on that. Okay, I sense there's no more, as you say, basically a clean up, Nathan, accept that. Is there any other comments we'd like to make? Can we move to the recommendation, please, which is that again, we reports received. The only thing was, Nathan, did we have to recommend this to council? I'm just conscious, in receiving it, are we being asked to adopt it or are we being asked to recommend it? I just wonder if there was a delegation question here. It's the same, dare I say, for the other papers as well. I have a sense that it's very, sorry?
It's receiving.
It's receiving, but who makes the decision on it? Is it council?
Is it because it's just a review and
This is a review. So this one here, and under our framework is the privacy policy is signed out by the CEO on recommendation of audit and risk. Is
Okay.
what this one is.
So we should recommend to Peter that he signs it off.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just trying to, I'm just wanting to,
Yeah.
the organisation benefit of us having looked at this, but actually making a positive recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we need to add to that. Don't lose that because I'm going to ask it for the other ones we did. That we recommend the chief executive approves policy.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tracy. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Lagoima.
Lagoima, again, it was due for review, some very minor changes made, in relation to the format and style. Otherwise, the policy remains for purpose.
Great. Questions, folks?
Just had one, and that was obviously a verbal request can be made, and is how that is captured. Is that part of the request procedure policy? There's obviously another policy that sits alongside that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And typically in that situation, we would type it up, send it to them, and what do you they can receive that, get confirmation.
This is what you requested.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sure.
It's possibly a question for all the policies, Nathan, but I just had a question here when I read this. Is there guidance on how to implement the policy? So this is, I think somebody mentioned before, policy. I think you might have traced some policies and procedures, because this tells me the high level policy, and I don't disagree with it, and I've got no comment to make on that. Again, it's a bit of Saskia's point. If I'm trying to deal with Lagoima, do I understand the procedures of how to implement the policy?
So, Lagoima as an example, we do in the training sessions with staff, undertake the process and work the executive assistants in particular, to make sure that flows through the organisation.
Yep.
With the policies that are being reviewed, typically we'll circulate and share and make sure people are aware. The artificial intelligence policy will take the implementation process, because it's a new policy.
I mean, Lagoima is, of course, not just requests for information. It's also affecting our democracy services in terms of meeting processes and what have you, because it's the Meeting and Information Act.
Yes.
So that's why I come back to this idea of, do we have presumably somewhere else how to, the implementation of.
So this policy focuses specifically on the request.
Okay, not forgotten the result. Understood. Okay, cool. Radio, that's fine. I'm just keen that we know how it's implemented in staff actually. At one point, how to implement it. It's fine. Any other questions? Brilliant. So again, we're back to my question, Saskia. It's my delegation here.
Yeah, same as before, this is the CEO sign out
Yeah,
on recommendation of audit.
When you are responsible for agreeing what goes out and what doesn't. Okay, so we're going to also recommend that the chief executive sign the policy. Move or seconded? Thank you, Tamar. Thank you, Tracy. Motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, is carried. Righty, one of the policies du jour, if that's the right thing, Nathan, or it's certainly flavour of the month, artificial intelligence.
New policy, use of artificial intelligence policy. Artificial intelligence comes with risk, so basically this policy highlights those risks and the mitigations to use those, and also provides some guidance for staff on how to utilise artificial intelligence. In terms of the implementation of this policy, staff will be building their awareness through training and adopting approved AI. We have a process in relation to adopting applications across the organisation, and making sure that they're aware of how this impacts on cybersecurity, information management, privacy, and technology legislation, regulation, and other requirements associated with technology as well.
Thanks, Nathan. So this is a new policy, or new guide. You call it guidance on, not to put we're doing policy, aren't we?
There's a guide section to it.
Yes, yeah. Actually, I wrote pretty good. Actually, on my thing here, I like to understand how to use it. You can sense it from my last question, Nathan. So look, folk, first time around. So thoughts, questions on this?
I learned a lot.
Pardon?
I learned a lot.
You learned a lot. That's right. I think we all learned it. Yeah. Was there any clarity that you needed, Tamar, or was it okay?
No.
Just from me, Bruce, under copyright on page 89, it says people should contact the legal advisor or information services. We don't have a legal advisor on staff yet. So perhaps having that in there might be seen as predetermination. I don't know whether there's another reason for it being there, but we don't have a legal advisor for staff to go to that I'm aware of.
I think we can change the wording on that. We were actually meaning the lawyers that we use, so we can change that. Legal advice or something, yeah.
Yeah, but if any employee is unsure, they're not going to pick up the phone and call Wilkinson Adams. They're going to talk to you or somebody else.
Yeah,
that's the pathway, and then you'll talk to the legal advisor.
Nathan, the question I really had out of this was the connection between the statement on under scope. So I'm on page 88. Council does not engage in development AI and will employ and source AI as per council policies. So I was very interested to know quite how that's implemented, and then I got down to approve AI. So can I just check, what are we allowing staff to use as an AI application, or are they just go to the market and use what they like?
That's the process that we need to go through now. One of the recommendations I'm making is Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is an AI intelligence program that's built into our Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So it protects our information within that ecosystem as such.
Right.
In terms of other AI, we have a process as mentioned, in relation to what we refer to as an information services assessment, and we'll review privacy, information management, cybersecurity, and the technology elements of it, how it fits into CODC.
So I'm just trying to look at it from, I'm out there trying to get through my work fast, and I think AI will help me. I'm just trying to work out what the first port of call should be. Are we really saying we're going to mandate Microsoft 365 Copilot, full stop, that's it?
that would be the starting point.
Yeah.
Until we
I
look.
wonder we need to be more clear. Sorry, I'm beating about the bush. I think we should be more clear. I get your point about something like Copilot and the chance that means that we preserve our data sovereignty and our privacy and all this drama that goes with this. And presumably it's not, we're not feeding it into some great machine it's like I show my age. It's not going back into the total AI environment where it gets sucked into for other people. I just wonder whether we should be encouraging, but we should be tighter about what you use.
So we've got other examples of AI across the organisation, data software, human resources software. So these are elements that over time will build up on a portfolio of AI technology.
Yeah.
So we have a approved list of applications already, so it's just adding to that. So I don't want to be too specific.
Okay.
It could be other examples we have built into our system.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's really helpful. What I would like to then, because then my final point, and it comes back to that approved AI, IES will undertake regular reviews of applications used by staff to determine use. Can I suggest that this committee would be interested on a periodic paper from you? What is that showing? Okay, because I think this is a new area. It's an area that we all perceive there is a level of risk. But say 6 monthly or even annually, we get some sense what your review work has disclosed.
Of all applications?
Used by staff to determine use, what is being used.
Okay.
See, it's interesting, it was really helpful what you just said. Well, actually, but there are, valid AI applications on things like our call centre or whatever. We don't know. And I think we're just trying to understand it. So I'm asking that probably on behalf of the committee, and Tamar and Tracy and Tim, you can beat me down for asking for another report. But I think at a point in time, it would be useful for us as governors to understand how AI is being used.
Yeah.
And I'm interested clearly in obviously the privacy, the data sovereignty, the other parts of the policy, and how, I'm presuming you're checking they are being preserved. That would be great assurance on my part to receive that.
So we incorporate that into our, I guess, 6 monthly review of applications.
Yeah, if that's possible, that'd be great, mate. Thank you. Yeah, Tina.
Following on from that, are there any current tools that people could potentially be using that carry a substantial known risk that should be banned or excluded, or that we would say as an organisation you're not to use this particular tool?
ChatGPT would be one I'd be concerned about.
Yeah.
Just because it's broader, but we need to go through those investigations first. Data sovereignty would be my biggest concern. There's education piece, not putting personal information into a tool like that we're pretty steep.
Yeah.
Which those conversations actually happen within this organisation, which is great.
Hasn't happened within the elected members, I don't think.
No.
Says the guy who's about to erase ChatGPT from his bookmarks. I didn't know. I thought that was the thing.
Yeah, so there's
haven't used it.
process that will be doing is educating everybody.
Yeah.
And elected members on what is good AI and what's not.
So if you could let us know what the good one is as soon as possible.
Yeah, so I'll be running some training sessions on the Copilot tool.
Great, thank you.
Especially considering we went to, the three of us that are sitting in the room, went to a seminar last year held by the Directors Institute of Directors that talked specifically about that, and all three of us can say that we all had a crack because it was new.
Right.
We'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
And so you can
There it is.
absolutely say ChatGPT is being used on this because we just didn't know.
Yeah.
Never heard of it prior to that meeting.
It's just where the risk is. I mean, if you're putting personal information into the risk increases.
Yeah.
But
I didn't
you're
think it's personal information.
If you're asking it to write a resource consent application for a fire.
And the way that I look at AI is treat it as an intern. It's not the thing that you use as your final piece.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes it's just a starter.
I
Yeah.
think one of the great things about AI is it gives you a framework, like if you're trying to
Yeah.
start from something from scratch, like I could sit there like with a blank piece of paper for an hour looking at my blank piece of paper, but when you've got a framework and you then change it, at least you've got something,
Great stuff.
Yeah.
We agree.
So it's a good discussion. So we want it to be an enabling tool. We want it to be safe.
Yes.
And I think that's the critical thing is we're trying to find the balance this policy does.
Yeah, and that's where that guidance section becomes really handy.
Yeah, brilliant. And I did, as I said, to be absolutely clear, Nathan, and when I got to the diagram, because I like pictures, I wrote good. Okay, it's from Ennis. Okay, right. So I think we're saying this is striking a balance at the moment, but I think, I guess we're just saying as a committee, we just want to be, to receive a level of assurance about the actual implementation of the policy as it goes through, Nathan, which is great. Thank you. So the recommendation is that we, receive the report. I think this is one that actually we should refer to council for their noting, even if only Tim, because as you said, Tracy, there's been training.
Absolutely.
I think it would be important for council note that, so I assume otherwise, well, actually, probably Peter, you sign it off, does Peter sign it off?
Yeah, so when Nathan and I talked about this, we thought it was quite operational, but of interest to audit and risk, but taking your point around, there's probably broader interest with council.
Yeah.
So this would be maybe recommend to council when we take it up to council is that we recommend the CEO. And Rose, that we can look at that when we take it up in April.
And probably flick it around the community boards as well. They've all got the tools.
Yeah.
Very good point. So the recommendation should be that we recommend council
Review,
review or just receive it.
Receive it, yeah.
Receive it for their information.
Receive,
If
yeah.
it's operational.
Yeah.
We're going to say,
Yeah.
well, I think, yes, we're going to, I think that's the way we'll leave it, that we are going to, refer the, policy to council for their information.
Elected members.
Yes,
Yeah.
elected members, sorry, yes, because it's going to be the community boards as well. Take a point. Yep, good point. Okay, do I move and second that motion? Yes. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tammy. Put the motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Cyber security. Nathan, don't go away.
So final policy. So as part of our cyber security plan, we've been recommending to strengthen our cyber security by adding a section in relation to responsibilities and accountabilities. To that policy.
Brilliant. Any particular thing you want to raise on that, Nathan, or?
If you just refer to the responsibilities and accountability section of the policy.
It's the primary thing, yep.
That's basically the addition to. Policy is overarching document, and there's a lot of standards that are associated with that in terms of how we implement and monitor and manage the policy as such.
Just as background, I think I mentioned before, I was at an Aon risk seminar yesterday, and admittedly it's an Aon seminar, and I always wonder about our insurers. I reckon to be an insurance salesman must be the easiest thing in the world, because you're just selling a share. Their study reflected that cybersecurity was the topmost risk across their worldwide client base. Cybersecurity. And in fact, it was interesting to go through, and they took us through an exercise of what actually happens when security is breached. So it is pretty important, and that's why you're a really critical man to us here, Nathan. So I'll just pass that on for what it's worth. Right, any questions on this? Yes, Tracy.
Just in most of the other policies that council has is the definition of council employees to include just everyone, including people that are the volunteer side. I think there was a clause in one of the other policies, maybe worth to do that in this one as well, just so that we know that it doesn't, the definition of employee, how far that reaches for cyber security. Is that?
Well, I read the, for me, Mr. Chair, I read the scope to include elected members.
Yeah.
Because it's anyone who's got a device, but consequences and so forth didn't include elected members. So we get down to council employees, and so the bit on page 99 refers equally to elected members as council employees. So that needs to be adjusted like the other one. But quite frankly, I would have in there, it says that misconduct may result in disciplinary action. When it comes to us, I said before about taking the toys. I think that could be the end result if people continue, you start getting your agendas printed rather than, and have this taken off you as an elected member, you're abusing the trust that's been given. And you said the guy just deleted ChatGPT. But I'm serious about that. Your biggest risk probably is more us than your staff, and there's nothing in that that holds us to account.
This would include contractors that access our systems.
Yes. Yeah, so it's part of a contractor being onboarded into the organisation and go through a process, trying to think what it's called. It's an agreement basically that covers off, cybersecurity, privacy and information management.
Thank you. Okay, so it seems pretty straightforward. So there's a bit of clarity there around elected members. I think is what, and actually it's actually going in the right direction, by the way, Nathan. It's supporting your policy and trying to make certain we capture the total population effect, which I think is really good. So Saskia, who do we recommend this to?
So if you're just looking at the list, this one, the plan is operational, that's CEO, and this is council.
This is council.
Yeah.
So we recommend to council that they adopt this policy.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be shared with all elected members for their information. I think it's our point.
And
Again, you want to
education.
go back to your community boards, don't you? Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Tamar. Thank you, Tim. I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, it's carried. Sarah, you're going to have a crack at me at the end of the meeting for making, but you have to play this?
Yeah.
You're probably in front of me already. Rightio, health and safety report. Hannah, welcome to the meeting. Thank you for being here.
So yeah, in the interest of time, the report as reads, just want to highlight a few things in the appendix, the health, safety and wellbeing strategy on page 117. So the health and safety wellbeing strategy that aligns with our people strategy and what we want to achieve in the overall people strategy. The strategy consists of 3 pillars: leadership, engagement, and risk management, which are key components in the Health Safety at Work Act. And the pillars are supported by key commitments and actions, and I'll just highlight a few of those. So under leadership, so introducing critical risk observations by ELT, that's twice a year. So for ELT to be a bit part of the due diligence responsibilities, to be familiar with critical risks and the associated controls. Introducing lead and lag indicators. The lead indicators are all the positive things the proactive things that we are doing in the health and safety space. And the lag indicator is lost time injury frequency rate. So in terms of the lead indicators, I'm having a discussion with ELT and later in March in terms of how that would look like. But examples would include sort of contract management to ensure all pre-qualification is completed before we engage contractors. Driving, so that we'll focus on improving our overall staff safety rating for driving, because that's another one of our critical risks. And also improve reporting times and an increase in reporting of near misses. So want to see those reports, number of near misses being reported increase every quarter. Just in terms of leadership, in terms of engagement, so we are lifting the profile of our health and safety reps, wanting them to lead more discussions. So one example would be leading also risk review discussions with their teams. And lastly, in terms of risk management, so we are starting to engage more with our contractors. So we have an engagement event with our contractors later in March, sponsored by SiteSafe and SiteWise, as part of education of our contractors and talking about shared health and safety responsibilities. As I mentioned, we're also rolling out the quarterly risk review process as part of the internal audit process. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Brilliant, Dennis. Thank you. That's a great report. Thank you very much. Can I open up questions? So, yes,
I just have a couple, just with regards to the near miss, there's one near miss has been reported. Just so I'm clear when I'm reading this, you do assign one of those, 4 levels to the near miss?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's the first question. Do we need to, it's not necessary for us to know what level that was reported at. What level that near miss was reported at. Or just that it has been assigned to a specific level.
You got me there because actually I didn't look at it in that sort of direction, to be honest. I'll look to my colleagues to know what they would reflect on that.
I don't know whether it would be necessary or not, it's just whether.
Just reflect for me the 4 levels, sorry, I was just struggling with
So
that.
that's on page 106,
Thank you.
and that's the severity rating.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it may not be necessary, it's just whether that.
Do you assign, sorry, so now I'm in the picture, do you assign a severity rating to those near misses? Honest?
So near miss could result in medical treatment or weight rescue, so that's the assignment basically.
Yeah.
So, but that one was a medical treatment injury, so that was the one that was reported there, so it wasn't a miss for that one. So.
Oh, yeah, I understand that, but you've got here, there was one near miss reported. So that does get, like, I guess it goes through the process of having a potential level rating.
Yeah.
I think I'd be equally interested, one seems like under-reporting the near misses, and I think you referred to that before in the introduction. So I'd be at the moment, Tracy, I'd want to know 2 things. One, how do we lift the near miss reporting? And I don't want to make it a form plain exercise, but how do we lift it? Because I suspect it's more there. And how's that influencing the work the organisation, and say through you, Hannes, does to learn from that? Because near miss reporting is a lead indicator, not a lag indicator, and it gives us a chance to perhaps try and get in front of an issue. I'd be very interested, almost regardless of the spirit, albeit obviously if it's a near miss that a person, almost rolled their tractor or something, yeah, you'd want to know why.
Just for learning, so
I take, the answer is I'm answering, yes, I'd like to know the severity, but I'd like a bigger picture of actually how do we encourage near miss reporting? How do we get that number up?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways. So really importantly, risk review, we started to have more discussions about health and safety.
Yeah.
And the second way is through, so we are going to be doing some training on the aware reporting system and also what needs to be reported, because we haven't done that for
Great. It's really helpful.
And
Thank you.
sorry, the only second question that I have is employee injuries. There was one incident requiring first aid, that finger being bitten by a dog. Is that level of reporting for this purpose too much so that that employee could be identifiable, and whether that's appropriate or not? Sometimes you want to leave those things as so they're unidentifiable for the team member that's got that, but I don't know whether that's too specific for identifiable purposes. I don't know whether that's appropriate or not.
I mean, clearly this should be anonymised and words.
Yeah.
I mean, small numbers mean that probably within the organisation it's known, but it probably is already. I mean, I think from a public perspective, I didn't have any trouble with the nature of, anonymised nature of Hannes's report. I was comfortable with that, but then I don't live in the community, so I'm not. That's where I need to look at you guys in the face and say, are you comfortable with this? It's not out of the ordinary from what I've seen elsewhere, but then as I say, I don't in the community. Okay, no other comments? Will you press me?
One question?
Yeah, sorry.
Just the aggressive behaviour and or violence, is that common to a particular work group or is it right across?
It's mostly being reported by the parties of the pool, in the pool areas. Some of it from customer services, front desk as well. And I think overall there's probably under-reporting happening. So that's why we rolling out the training, but still training in March, raising that awareness. this is in a workshop format as well, so people can actually talk about what they're being exposed to, because sometimes they just kind of put up with it, without knowing actually that it should be reported. You don't have to tolerate certain behaviour.
Yeah.
Might add to that as well, I think we're seeing not a big rise, but more of it right across our frontline staff, whether it's in quotes, libraries or customer services. And Hannes makes a really good point around it's not something that should be put up with, it should be reported and talked about with everybody. And I think, you know, the more we do around talking about our near misses, then people aren't taking that stress that we talk about home as well. So and I, you know, the history shows that when we do go into harder financial times, stress levels do get higher in the community. And I think, you know, we're doing a lot sort of across health and safety and ELT to make sure that our staff know that we have no tolerance for that type of behaviour, and we should share it and learn from it, and all the tools that we have at our disposal to be able to cope with it the best we possibly can.
Like as Miles referred to at other councils and what's going on across the country.
Yeah.
Yep, we're in with the pack, I'm afraid, on this one. That's really important. Thank you. Any other questions? Just a couple of observations and questions from me, Hannes. I always start from what I try and think is the governance responsibility or a duty holder. So I'm very interested in the strategy. So I started actually at the back, if you will. Just remind me when and how that strategy was adopted.
So I had a discussion with ELT last year. So it was adopted then. It still hasn't been fairly socialised with the health, safety and wellbeing committee. And the next step is to socialise it with the wider organisation.
Great. Look, I think it's a great strategy, by the way. I read through it, liked it. I didn't have the question, what's the action plan that follows out of it? I mean, you list the actions. I'd love an implementation plan, but you know, you I'm sure have it in hand. So to me, this is structurally our through you, the organisational way we're thinking about health and safety is clearly good, and it's on an improvement angle. So I think I'm keen to see that. I guess what I'm really trying to say is, I think for the committee's purposes, partly because I guess we're duty holders, although we don't have the liability, but also from a governance perspective, that actually you are being enabled and you have the opportunity to implement the strategy. Because it seems to me that if we don't implement the strategy, we aren't, and I think we'd be open to challenge. That's tremendous. By the way, again, in my sort of ability to write great and good all down in my stuff, that's a very good wellbeing set of, I'm going to say, tactics that you're doing. It's superb. It's actually one of the better ones I've seen recently. So well done. I think that's really superb that you're doing all those things, and I'd argue you keep it up, because it gets me into, you can see I read this backwards, then it gets me to the EAP. Now I'm worried about the work versus personal. That's quite a high number at 66% relative to the other EAP reports I've seen from elsewhere around the country. So, Peter, look, I'm looking your way as Chief Executive. That number is concerning, and this may not be the appropriate venue directly for reflection on that, but I just would, you know, sorry for more detailed comment, but I just want to reflect. To me, that's quite a concerning number. Now, it could be that you know, an EAP provider here in Alex sees this as work versus personal, and elsewhere where I go, they see it the other way around. But it's almost a direct inverse of what I see elsewhere. So I'm just concerned that we've talked at various points through the meeting about a level of stress. We've talked that with the LTP, Saskia, etc. I'm just so I'm grateful we've got a good wellbeing series of meetings, but I suspect that we can't do too much in this area. Exactly right. I know that's platitudinal, but I just think it's for a problem to leave. Unless you have any reflections, or Hans.
No, but I think you're right. You know, we have seen things play out, and people's lives are intermingled between work, after hours, and all that sort of stuff, and it's hard to you know, we'll deal with a whole lot of stresses and everything is sort of interconnected, and it's very hard to, at the end of the day, the ERP and that sort of stuff, or the EAP, sorry. Yeah, I think again, as we sort of, with the pressure that's going to come on the community, and as we see, that will flow through the staff as well in their work and private lives. So yeah, just something we have to be vigilant. Hence, there will be initiatives and things like that to try and people to get balance in their lives, and if they don't have balance in their lives, how can we actually intervene to try and enable people to sort of reset their priorities? And the EAP is part of it, but equally so is good leadership.
And just on that note, Peter and Louise are working on leadership training, particularly with our third tier, and quite a focus of that is around work program management. And we are seeing that's a bit of a trend coming through with some of our staff in terms of high workload, and obviously enabling leaders to have the right tools to have the good conversations and then those workloads. So that is something that is quite a focus in our team at the moment as well.
I just want to say that because we had a meeting already this week, we asked the next health and safety report, we have the annual leave liability included in the report to see if you're getting on top of. You mentioned some good finance people needing a break. I suspect they've got a high annual leave balance. It'll be good to see it coming down. But a couple of other questions, Hans, if that's okay. Again, just trying to understand the system. So I'm very interested in actually how we get on with contractors, because the combined PCBU concept is really important. So Delta, you noted that issue there. My question was, how do we satisfy ourselves that they've dealt with the matter appropriately?
I mean, so these quarterly meetings with the contract manager and Delta, for example, if it's something that that requires further investigation, further questions, we would normally go back and ask. For example, with Fulton Hogan in the past, we've asked to see copies of the investigations, corrective actions they've taken, some of the more serious events. So that's why we get the reports into our reporting system, so that we can actually, if more questions are required, that we need to ask, then we can go back and ask sort of questions.
That's why I think your contractor, Bricky, with site-wise and site-safe will be really important. There's a critical part that's come out of, I think, what I've observed around some of the decisions is actually, is there clarity in their combined PCBU relationship and primary responsibility, but recognising that if the primary responsibility for us is held by somebody else, that doesn't mean we shouldn't monitor. So I'm very keen to understand ultimately how we do that. Then the other thing with contractors, because they, quite frankly, well, I should be careful actually. An angry person coming to one of your libraries, David, is a very serious thing for the staff member. I get that. In terms of physical harm and injury, our contractors probably carry the biggest risk for us. So I don't want to exclude the other stuff. I would presume if a contractor had a notifiable event to WorkSafe, we would know instantly.
We're supposed to know, yeah. That's probably what we need to do with our contractors to make sure that we are notified.
Yeah. So I'm taking the report as showing evidence that there have been no notifiable incidences in the last quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd expect, in other places as risk chair, I get every notifiable incident out of the organisation. I'm not asking the street for that here, because I want to know that we are actually monitoring that. We have the systems to receive, and we are monitoring. Okay.
Then you get told if there's any kind of event.
Right, you do? Yeah.
Phone call straight away.
Great, good. That's great, Julie.
I can add that assurance too, that particular on Delta, I'd call within a day that thing happened.
Good.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's good. No, that's good to know. It's Kim, it's one of the values of your proposed breakfast with these folks. Great way to keep the expectations in front of them, because actually do they carry it out? We can write it down as a requirement many times, but see how we go.
And often they're having on one of our sites, there's the case, so
Can I just be a wee bit picky here, Hannah? It's my final point. It's under, you can see, again, I'm going back up. So 2.4.2 on employee injuries. So this is, I think, our own people. We have written here, and it's now on the official record, none of the injuries were of a serious nature and include bumping a head and restoring. Can I say, what's our attitude towards bumps? Now, you know, I watch too much sport, and we all get worried about you know, head injury assessments or what have you. And we're using pretty informal language here, which I think I've taken it in what I think is the spirit it's meant to be, which is that actually it wasn't overly serious. It was a bump, but no particularly big issue. My point is, how do we know it's not a big issue? You know, head injuries are those sorts of things that actually we should, if I can go back to my sporting bit, we need to take seriously. What actually happens here?
Yeah, I mean, we must follow up with the employee, but yeah, I think the points in terms of down the track, there could be consequences that we're unaware of as a result of this. So, yeah, I take that feedback on board.
Okay, mate, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Right, let's unless there's any other questions from folk, that's a really helpful report. The trouble is you've given us good information, hence I'll ask lots of questions, Hannah. But I don't want to incentivize you to go the other way and not give me good information, because otherwise I'll get worried. So that's really
Bruce,
good.
can I just ask another question?
Oh, sure.
Have we got any, and this ties into something, a previous role that I did, have we got anyone in a role that required a level of medical evaluation over time for respiratory things or stuff like that? And the reason why I asked, in the previous role, we had a role that was exposed to dust, and we took medical levels of lung capacities, baseline readings, so that we could actually monitor that person over time, so that we were doing our due diligence. I don't know whether there's anyone within a council role. Contractors are, I think, would be excluded because that would be their responsibility, but within council, that we would need to be very mindful that we weren't going to find ourselves 15 years down the track that you didn't monitor my health when it's a critical risk.
So it's one of this recommendation in a external report by KPMG last year to develop a health monitoring policy. So that's in progress in terms of developing that, but currently we don't have.
Okay.
I'm not aware of anyone, you know, in terms of long-term exposure, but it is something that we need to have a clear policy on in terms of how do we monitor that. To make sure, as you say, that we don't discuss something 10 years down the track.
Yeah. Well, I guess it comes from not only from a person's health perspective, it also comes from an organisational perspective as well.
Yeah.
And there definitely are roles that are more at risk. I think of the pool crew and the chemicals and things like that would got good policies around that don't have that health monitoring. So I think that's a really good point.
Thank you for that, Tracy. It's a really helpful point. Is there any other points, questions for moderator? So look, we received the report. I think that's fine. I'm not going to try and add to that at this stage. Otherwise, I will be up for the high jump. So there's not to move in the second that we received. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you, Hannes. Appreciate your time and indeed the effort in the report. It's actually needed, but it's great to have it. Right. The financial report, which, let me just check, Saskia, everybody else is seeing bar me, is that correct?
That is correct.
Ah, right, okay, cool. Is there any comment you'd like to make? Hello. Sorry, yeah. Well, bearing in mind others have seen it, I have a couple of key questions, but is there any sort of broad comment that would be worthwhile for the committee to at least have on points you can have?
So just in terms with this report, there's been a few council decisions made since the forecast was put through. So the Three Waters forecasts for their operations and their capital was confirmed in the February meeting. So these are not included in this report. So there's a couple of contract experiences, for instance, and desludging treatment, which will be rectified as part of those decisions. Outside of that, we're still relatively underspending our capital expenditure. And also that means we're not utilising our external debt, which we're not uplifting.
Brilliant. So I have some questions, a couple, actually only a couple, but you've got another chance there to crack at the same thing you guys want to raise.
I did have one, and it is consequential to a meeting because I hadn't picked it up. We say that there's no land sales pending, but when we did the hall, there was talk of 5 sections still for sale on Cemetery Road, but I'm just reading, it says there are currently no other subdivisions ready for sale. Is that because there's just part of a subdivision left? Is it more a wording thing?
It's from Memorial Board, and you highlighted to me that the 5 sections that we held back is possible continuation of the subdivision or development of that area had actually been pulled back. So that was news to me. So at the time of writing this, I had no idea that those 5 sections had been walked from the market. And there was actually 6 sections. There was one fell over at the time of development being issued.
All right, thank you.
Donna, look, my interest in perhaps I can be similar anyway, because I'm conscious that another committee sees this and I don't want to be, you know, I can go through this, well, I would be just to go through it with fine tooth comb, which is not relevant. I'm interested actually how our overall financial strategy is going. Now, I know that's encapsulated in a line-by-line budget, but I even like to try and look a bit higher. So without quite yet being au fait with the financial strategy, I look at 1 or 2 areas that, from my experience anyway, may be points of pressure for us. And I mean, you've alluded to probably most of them already. So it does interest me in terms of performance, things like land sales, because it's non-rate revenue. Even if it's being sucked into capital, it doesn't worry me. We need to find revenue, or rather, if we have plans that are maximising revenue from sources other than rates, the financial strategy is built on that because our rates level assuming that. So we need to equally monitor the non-rate revenue as we do the collection of our rate revenue. So look, there's a general sense here about land sales, and Tim, you already sort of really asked a question about that, and I was just wondering how we were going. But I think I've got a sense of that, which is fine.
If I add that this was discussed at council, and I think some concerns about the time it's taken were raised at the time.
Just it's probably a little accounting question. Under infrastructure P&L spend, we say that expenditure has been unfavourable in effect due to the amount of staff salaries allocated to capital projects, which is offset by operating income. I didn't understand that. Does that mean we aren't capitalising as much salary because we are underachieving and therefore the rate burden is high? Okay, which is interesting. This is again another implication of us not achieving our capital. Is that actually the rate burden is going up because we've got to fund it from somewhere. I know if it gets capitalised, it's funded by debt probably, but it does have that impact. Okay, so that's interesting as far as that's concerned. Look, you guys have gone through the CapEx, but I take it one of the big movers is that the CapEx budget that I was looking at around Community Council property and facilities assumes the Cromwell Town Hall. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a big number that sits within the total anticipated, what is it, $70 million? The 70, no, what is that planned capital spend for the year? 70 million, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess perhaps
but it's fair to say that we won't be hitting that mark.
No. So I mean, I we can play numbers here, and I'm on lots of committees. We tend to look at spend relative to the total budget. But I mean, if I was to discount that out for the reasons we're saying, Peter, I think you hinted, Donald, there's still quite a way to go to meet our capital budget for the year, correct? Yeah, which will be stressful. Okay, that's cool. Understand where we're at. Yeah, that's me. So thank you for that. It gives me a sense of where we are relative to our financial strategy. As I say, Donna, going forward, that's what I'll be interested in. I think it's where the committee should be interested in terms of financial risk along with our financial prudence and whatever. So the recommendations, the report's been received, seeing it's really in some sense for my benefit, I'm going to move it. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Tracy. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, it's carried. Chair's report. I haven't got anything prepared, and I'd rather that I something more and got ourselves into our risk environment, because that's where I've got some thoughts and views around risk, which I would perhaps like to share as we get into it. So at this stage, as long as we can, I suppose we need to note my verbal update. I'm going to move that. Do I have a second there?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
That's great. Members, is there anything you want to report at this stage? Yeah, I think we may have.
I do, Mr. Chairman. And it's preliminary at the public forum at the council meeting last Wednesday. A community board chair made an accusation of bullying within the council. So to be clear, she was making an accusation secondhand. Was not coming from her. She was relaying from her. Fair to say, it came as, I think, a surprise to all the council. I immediately the next day spoke to that community board chair and ascertained what it was she was referring to, and I'm still working my way through that, so I won't comment on that further, but just to say that I firstly ascertained it wasn't me, in which case I felt free to look into what the allegations related to. I've also given two councillors an email simply saying, if you have issues, please come forward to me. If you don't feel comfortable coming forward to me, come forward to Peter. If you don't feel comfortable coming forward to Peter, here's another alternative. And at this stage, simply working my way through the situation, really. So that's all I really want to note on it. That there's probably no reputational risk because the damage has already been done, regrettably. But working my way through to make sure that if there is a problem, appropriate actions will be taken. And if there isn't, then well, that's good too.
Any make comment on it? We'll take its time, I suppose.
Yeah.
And we'll take time to take its space. Yeah. Okay. Anything from you that you'd like to raise? Well, I'll move from the chair that we take the verbal report. Second, thank you, Tamar. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. Brilliant. And then I think the government's report is essentially just to report the actions that the action is closed. So I'm going to be quick on that and say I'll move from the chair that we take the report as received. Thank you, Tim. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. There's only one place I have to remember to do that differently is Wellington, because they have a remote to vote by and it comes up on the wall. And I keep wanting to push motions through fast, and I keep I've got to say, use your remote.
Goodness me. That's entirely efficient.
I could do that in public, sure. It seems like I'm having a crack at my good mates in Wellington, but I'm not trying. Dates of the next meeting, 7 June. Diary's not here, but I think that's in my diary. Is that a problem for anybody else? No? Good. Note that. Right, I don't think we need to do anything about that. So we have a resolution here to exclude public for a bunch of items. I've gone through those matters and I'm comfortable they, in my assessment, fit the need for public exclusion. So I'm going to move from the chair that we exclude the public. Thank you, Tamar. Is there any discussion on that motion? We're comfortable? Great. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. Now, an hour ago, I was meant to give you a break. Do we need another break?